Everybody, YouTube people. I'm Giuseppe Oliveri, Artistic Director of PhMuseum. This is the last presentation of the 2025-2026 Masterclass program. So it's going to be emotional. Today we have the participant of CRITICAE, the Masterclass on documentary photography that was led by Laura El-Tantawy and Elisa Medde. It's a pleasure to be here, and I just want to congratulate to all the participants who are here today. Wish them all the best, and just leave the words briefly to Laura and Elisa that I really want to thank, and then to Rosa that will moderate this presentation.
Great. Thank you so much, Giuseppe, and thank you everybody that's tuning in. And as usual, I think really the greatest thank you that I want to send out is to the participants of this year's program. It's really hard to believe that it's been 8 months. It's always like this. I always know this from day one, that it's going to go by very quickly. And it certainly has. I think this year it's actually gone by quicker than it normally does. But it's been another incredible year, with another year that really has proven that the power of photography is very much alive in storytelling. And although everything has been told, every single person here has been engaging with photography in a very unique way that shows new ways of seeing. And I'm very excited to hear and see their presentations today, and to have been once again joining forces with Elisa. So thank you, and thanks PhMuseum for having me.
Yeah, I just wanted to add on that I mean, of course, it's bittersweet. This was my second year with the program, and things will be changing moving forward. And it's been once again an incredible honor to be able to follow the practices of you all for quite a long time, and to see it evolve over the months and the meetings that we had. We had some of the last meetings right in the last few days, really. And I think that what I'm left with is this sense of gratitude, but also of deep awe in the capacity that you all have had to not only find your path, but make it bolder and build a system for yourself. In some cases, the projects are more towards the conclusion. In some other cases, will need more time, but I feel that both of you have found, just the system, the path, the voice, right, to be able to continue image making and storytelling. So thank you all for sharing your projects and for your trust in me and Laura. Thank you, Laura, for being an incredible partner in crime, and thanks PhMuseum for having me.
We'll miss you and Laura, both of you.
Yeah, we'll miss you too. But it's not the end. I mean, we will evolve and find ways to do more.
Absolutely. We'll collaborate in different ways for sure.
Cool. Thank you very much, Giuseppe, for introducing the masterclass. Also, Laura and Elisa as well, for being with us also today at the end of this path. And I would like to start the presentations. And now is the turn of Kelsy Macuacua. So please, Kelsy, it's your stage.
Hello, everyone. I hope you're well. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect. All right. So hi, everyone. Once again, my name is Kelsy Macuacua. I am a visual artist from Mozambique. And today I will be talking to you about Traços da Maré Azul. All right. Traços da Maré Azul is a photographic series that follows the lives of artisanal fishermen of the Maputo Bay in Mozambique. Much like our own shadows, this community often goes unnoticed in the daily lives of those who surround them. They're faceless and nameless to the passing eye, figures in the background of a morning commute, silhouettes against the vast coastline that most of us tune out as we initiate a new day. We readily see the byproducts of their labor and yet carry limited insight to the lives of those who keep this practice alive and to the process behind it. Traços da Maré Azul aims to pull the viewer into the fisherman's world, a world where they are no longer silhouettes. They're people with names, with faces, and waves of stories to tell. How is this worldwide practice made ours, and how does it differ from the rest of the world? What separates one fishing culture from another are the tools, the specific techniques and inherited knowledge that a community brings to the water. That observation became the lens through which this project found its deeper focus. Traços da Maré Azul is a vehicle in which I intend to deepen my understanding as to how our Mozambican ancestors practice fishing and how this practice has shifted, remained the same, and evolved over time. So, fishing as an ancestral practice. Through my research process, I came across Henry Junod. I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly. He was a Swiss missionary and ethnographer who extensively studied the Tsonga tribe in South Africa. And while he was in this region, he also made his way to Mozambique in the late 1800s to the early 1900s. And he ended up publishing 2 books, one of which accounted what the fishing practice was like for the tribe members in this period of time. What particularly stood out to me the most was the fact that fishing wasn't merely a means to survival. It wasn't merely a means to feed the community at large. There was this deep spiritual and ritualistic aspect and component to their practice. Before they even stepped foot into the waters, they always made sure to give their offerings to the gods, to pray for their hands, for the tools that they used, for there to be fish in abundance, and of course, for protection. That is going to be something that is fairly distinct from what I read and what I witnessed with the fishermen here in the Maputo Bay, because they kind of didn't have this ritualistic component to their practice. It was really more so a means of survival and a working title for a lot of them. Another distinct component that stood out to me was that Henry highlighted this tool called a shiranga basket, which essentially the tribal men used as the tool to fish. They weaved it themselves, and only the men were allowed to go out into the lakes and partake in this practice. You will also notice that in the photographs that I captured and the fishermen that I was able to photograph throughout this process, the tool that they used was predominantly their fishing boats and as well as fishing nets. That being said, I will go ahead and share some of the photos with you. Some of the fishing nets that they use. Here we have, normally when the fishermen come back from out at sea, you will find a lot of these ladies with these water buckets of sorts. We call them bacias, the one that the lady has over her head. And normally they go out to meet the fishermen, purchase some of these fish themselves to then take it back to the fish market and resell it to the community at large. Here is Justino, which is also a fisherman I came across when I went to the fisherman village, and he was cleaning out the guts of some of the fishes that he had caught in that particular day. This is something that a lot of people can do themselves, but it is also a service that they provide, and if people would like, they can also go to the fish market and they could do this for them before they take the fish home for themselves. I tried to attempt to represent maps in a not so traditional way. This photo was taken where a lot of these fishermen take off from or depart from. And the outline here is of the map of that exact same coastline where they take off from. I would like to end by reading a poem that I wrote when contemplating about the ocean. There's an ethereal element to the ocean, the seat of the earth's soul. Whispers flow in waves. Does she ponder the way we ponder, or would that stagnate her inherent flow? Sonorous above water, still in motion just below. The story she's carried for eons forgo translation. If we listen close enough, she's extended her truth all along. Even stillness flows. Lastly, I would like to thank the PhMuseum team as a whole. I would love to thank Rosa. You have been an absolute star. Honestly, you've helped us all through so much. Or I'll speak for myself. You really have been a blessing throughout this entire process. I would also like to thank our incredible mentors, Elisa, Laura. You both have inspired me a lot more than I can express. And it's been truly a pleasure going through these last 8 months with you. And of course, I have to thank my peers as well. As we went through this entire process together, you have too inspired me a lot through your vulnerability and sharing your entire process and your craft as a whole. So truly, thank you.
Thanks so much, Kelsy. Just some quick words. I don't really have a particular question, but just a reflection on really seeing this come full circle and from where we began, and you first saying, this is what I want to do, and just putting it out there as an idea, and then having some struggles and stumbling blocks on the way, which is part of the process. And I think seeing where you are today, I feel like you've managed to finally open the door and you've arrived at this destination. I feel like you're showing us this really interesting ethnographic research. I feel like it's more ethnographic than anything. And I think that is very interesting. And I think it is the beginning of something. And I'm really interested to see where you go with this and how you travel with this series. But yeah, I'm really happy that the door is finally open and you've found your way in.
Thank
Amazing.
you. Thank you.
It's been really great working with you as well. Thanks.
Of course, likewise.
Yeah, really, building on what Laura said, that I agree with completely. I think that, also these setbacks and struggles that Laura was referring to, the nature of your project is collaborative, and that is in itself quite a major aspect, because collaborative practices need to find their way to exist, right? And you need to find your position and how you deal with conversations and with the treatment of all the materials, the visual material that you produced. And I think you found a remarkable way to move forward. So I'm very, very proud of what you accomplished, and really looking forward to see more.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much also for your very kind words, Kelsy. That's very much appreciated. I will cry at the end of each presentation, but that's nice. Okay, let's thanks again. Let's keep on track. Now it's the turn of Giulia Arantxa Novelli. Please,
Hi.
Giulia.
Hi, everyone. I share my screen. How can I? Sorry, I can find. Okay. Hi everyone, I'm Giulia Novelli. I'm an Italian photographer, and the project I'm presenting today is called The Future Has Already Begun. It talks about the layered identity of the community of a small village in central Sardinia called Ottana, that is primarily known for deeply rooted cultural identity embodied by traditional masks and the rituals linked to them. And starting in the 70s, it underwent a sudden and massive industrialization whose unmet promise left deep and living marks across the territory that echo throughout the community. So the project basically investigates this relationship between industrial heritage and tradition through a collective emotional perspective. What pushed me to... Can you see my screen? Yes, okay. What moved me to start this project was the need to go beyond the idea of an identity fracture and offering instead a complex continuity and a stratification made by ambiguity, suspension, and unsolved tension. As the masterclass began, I had already taken several photographs and collected a large amount of archive material, including photographs, documents, and newspaper articles. So managing all this material was challenging. It's been necessary to step back and deconstruct what I already had in order to find a clear direction. So I worked through subtraction, discarding all that archive material that could anchor the story to precise historical framework. I gave up the need to over-explain what happened, and I kept just a few archive images woven into the flow of the narrative. I focus instead on the collective memory and its narrative that is about time perceived as a cycle, marked by the continuous alternation of glory and disgrace. I used the ritual fire as a rupture and to introduce the element of masks. This idea of time as a cycle is reflected in the very structure and sequence of the project, in which some visual elements return, and in which some images respond to each other, especially the opening and the closing. Oop. No, it's blocked? Okay. Is blocked again. Okay, sorry. The title comes from a document written in 1969, so at the very early stages of industrialization. It reads, we came together, driven by the belief that today's citizens, all citizens, cannot mortgage the fate of future generation out of inertia or fear. Action is needed, and urgently, because our future has already begun. So this is the project. It is still a work in progress. I want to explore the religious life of the community and add further layers about what happened before the industrialization. And the final form I envision for the work is a book that could reflect the circularity and that could push the viewer, to the reader, to come back to the first image and start the journey again to grasp this sense of time as a cycle. Thank you.
I think I will start with this one. I have a personal involvement in here because, of course, you know, we come from the same island, and the town that you're describing is very, very close from where I come from. So it hits home as a topic. But most of all, I wanted to say I don't really have a question. I have a few considerations. So this body of work was very welcome for me, not only for personal reasons, but also because I think that one of the most powerful things that we've been seeing in documentary photography and documentary practices in photography, right? That we always look at them as a spectrum, is the more and more the subversion of what does it mean to look at the place, what does it mean to tell stories about a location and about the history of a community. And in here we're talking about an internal gaze, first of all, which is very much welcome. The island, as many other places that have been suffering of colonization and subalternity, have suffered of you know, very external gazes that build an identity that the communities are trying to unpack in current times. But also you set yourself in a very complicated place of telling telling a story of this moment in which modernity takes over, industrialization takes over, and it does it with a practice that is not coming from the community, but it's overimposed. And thus that disrupts all sorts of equilibriums and patterns that were existing in there. And you've been doing so, trying to combine many different types of materials, so to express the complexity of the story that you were trying to tell. And this is very commendable, in my opinion, because so many times we think that we need to oversimplify things that are complex because it's too difficult to explain them. But you set yourself in another direction. You said, no, well, I do need to face the complexity of it, right? We need to address, that's exactly the point. And I think you managed to find a paradigm that works and that it's helping you set up the structure and the architecture for what this project will look like towards the end. Yes, you do have quite some work to do still because you want to develop some aspects, but you have a structure now. You have this architecture in the storytelling approach that you created for yourself, which I think is very commendable. And once again, it's been a pleasure, and I'm really looking forward to see how this goes.
Thank you.
Yes, again, I think I don't really have a lot to add to what Elisa has said because Elisa articulated the thoughts so well. But I definitely want to also voice my appreciation and respect for how you always went away from our sessions discussing the work, feeling like this needs to be done, that needs to be done. And you kind of took a step back and then came back and said, okay, I've looked at everything again and I've come back, and you have like a new interpretation. You've done a new thing. And I think time after time after time, you kept coming with a smile on your face, doing the work and managing. And I do absolutely agree with Elisa. I think you've arrived at something today that feels very much like many, many steps ahead from where we began. But one of the things I noticed in the presentation today that I thought was really interesting is the contrast between what's in the images and what's in the text. And I know there's very little text to go on at the moment, but I feel like there's a really interesting silence in the images that I think ties to the idea of time. Because in a way, time happens silently. It's kind of invisible. It just passes. And I think you managed to articulate that in the visual narrative. But with that last sentence that you had, the future has already begun, that got me to think, in a way, it's a warning, but it's also quite a positive way to approach the narrative and go back into it again. Because when you think about the future, it's always with a sense of positivity because you can redeem whatever happened in the past and do better. So I think within the idea of a circular narrative, to go and revisit the images, I would be revisiting them maybe from even a different lens. And I would be seeing very different layers from that perspective. And that's something new that you did today. And I really appreciate that. So again, congratulations. And it's been a pleasure working with you, Giulia.
Thank you. I want to briefly thank the PhMuseum team for making all this possible, and Laura and Elisa for giving me a solid method to approach projects like this, and for pushing me to trust more my visual language. And of course, last but not least, I want to thank the whole class for sharing this journey with me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Giulia. Well done. So now let's keep going. And it's the turn of Javier.
Hello, hello everyone. Okay, let me share my screen. Okay, is that working? Yes, we see it. Okay. Okay, before this class, I was so lost about this work. I had a few images that I didn't really know what to do with, and I was struggling to produce new images for the work. But thanks to professors, Laura, Elisa, for seeing something in the work that I didn't. To the guest lectures, to my classmates, really such a huge inspiration. I love seeing how you see, oh my God, my work moved by leaps and bounds, and like I was finally able to see it better and find direction for it. Okay, fair warning, I did write everything down, so I will just be reading through it because I didn't want to stutter and like ramble the way I usually do because I'm so nervous. But yeah, okay, just getting that out of the way. This is my ongoing body of work titled Exit Wounds. I never know how to tell this story. It feels like it has many beginnings. But I find myself going back to one night 4 years ago in 2022 when my father fired his gun in our home. I'd heard my parents arguing from their bedroom, and then suddenly, 2 gunshots. Neither of them were harmed. My father had fired without a target, hitting the wall in the bedroom television. We cut ties with my father after that incident. For days, my mother continued to watch on the TV. My father was a policeman. I loved him, but more so I was so afraid of him. Growing up, he was rarely at home, and when he was home, he felt miles away. He rarely talked to me and maintained a serious and stern disposition. As a kid, if I acted or spoke out of line, I could expect to be struck. Of course, a child would take this as the norm. This was what every father was like. This was how a policeman acted. This was what it meant to be a man. Even before the shooting incident, I had started to resent my father, not only for my upbringing, but for how he treated my mother and the many times he had wronged her in their marriage. To me, the incident was both a crucial turning point in our family story and the culmination of decades worth of issues, some of which began before I even came into the picture. In this photo, light by the door to my parents' bedroom. In the aftermath of the incident, I have been attempting to process the grief through the language I know, photography, to trace my father's shape, to maybe understand him, and through him, myself, I have been piecing together photographs that I took and photographs from our trove of old pictures. Here is a photo of me and my father from when I was 4. Most of the pictures I found of him smiling are from when I was too young to remember. Here, an old portrait of my father on a beach, presumably a while before I was born. Eventually, I began to restage these photographs of him in self-portraits in an attempt to respond to these few images that told me very little about him. I wanted to know if anything would come out of me reenacting him. Underscoring all of this, at that point in my career, my work in photojournalism had stirred my political awakening in how I saw violence and injustice operating at various scales. This gave my family story context and reason, almost, I want to say. Conversely, the images I'd taken on assignments began to speak new meanings that I wrestled with. In this photo, the former Philippine National Police Chief addresses an audience of cops from an assignment I did in 2016. Our police force is known for its corruption and impunity. The man in this photo now has a warrant of arrest from the International Criminal Court for being instrumental to our former president's crimes. I decided to try shooting at the firing range. On a surface level, I just wanted to get over the fear of guns and gunshot sounds. But in this, I also performed my father and pushed into our parallels even further. Shooting with my camera, shooting with a gun. This wouldn't be the first time that I fired a gun. My father took me to firing ranges when I was younger. Just a few weeks ago, I sat down with my mother to revisit the incident in the bedroom where it happened. We ended up piecing our memories of that night together. We also spoke about how differently we saw my father. I told her she had known so many versions of him, while I only knew the version of him that was my dad. This is the very gun that my father fired in our home. I took this photo the year before the incident when I saw it lying on their bed. Of the 2 bullets that my father shot, we only ever found the remnants of one. Here, I photographed the deformed bullet again and again and again. Another image from one of my assignments in 2022, just a few months after the incident. Here, policemen form a barricade against protesters at a rally. In this project, I have found memories surfacing in bizarre ways. In objects, I unlock information, feeling. In myself, I remember my father. In something as mundane and meant to be as joyous as fireworks, I flinch at the sounds and am thrust back to the night of the incident. But trauma and grief are strange that way. Another page from my father's police academy yearbook, one of the few traces of him left in our house. In the old photos of him, I thought I could approximate who he was. I then set out on these reenactments to mull over our similarities. But what I ended up with more were reminders of our differences, and more importantly, outlines of who I am. I am who I am because of him and in spite of him. But I am not him. Eventually, at the firing range, I introduced prints of self-portraits for me to shoot at. Here is a newspaper headline that I stumbled upon collaged with old photos of me and my father. Once again, a photograph from one of my assignments around 6 years ago. This is my father's Armalite tucked in our living room sofa. This was photographed the year before the incident. Two years ago, because of some legal matters, my mother and I needed to personally visit my father at his current residence. The whole thing went surprisingly well, and I even mustered the courage to shoot some of his portraits. I look at these pictures and in his eyes, he tells me that he's sorry. But maybe that's just what I want to see. This is what this project has been. Making images, finding images, looking at images, trying to make out what they're saying to me, if they're saying anything. Am I finding meaning in them or speaking the meaning I want into them? I never know how to tell this story because I go in circles, like the story never ends. But in any case, I'm grateful that there is enough space in photographs for this story's chaos to live in. That pictures can somehow house the confusion, the anger, the sadness, and the pain that the words I know cannot contain. I'm grateful that in making pictures, I might heal. That in making pictures, I might stand up for myself. I see exit wounds as an articulation of a bigger, maybe a lifelong journey to process grief and to ultimately understand who I am. Here I am at once a journalist, an investigator, a historian, and an ordinary child. The child in some of these photos, making sense of this world and what has happened to his family. I found this photograph of 3-month-old me sitting on my dad's lap. Look at you in jail here. Everyone is asking what you two are up to with your all smile, written on the back of the print in my mother's handwriting. A family picture. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, JL. It's really hard to comment because I find that you always approach this work from early on from a space of doubt, whereas when I look at it, I see so much conviction. And I think the conviction is in everything that you've been doing with the work. I mean, I understand where the doubt is coming from. And I do feel the shadow looming in all the images. I think it's the shadow of your father, but actually I'm beginning to think part of the shadow is yours as well. You're definitely looming in there as well. And I know this has been a really, really difficult body of work. And I really appreciate your honesty and willingness to be so open to share so many layers of it with us, but also with us today here. I find I don't normally say this and I feel hesitant to say it, but I feel like the work is ready to move to the next stage. Now, whatever that next stage is for you is something only you can decide. And obviously, we're only seeing a very small aspect of it today. But it would be really, really great to see what this is going to come or become next. And I think hearing the work in the way that you presented it today with your voice really gave it a new emotional layer that was always there. But I think today it was just articulated in such a powerful way. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm just curious, like how you feel about where you've come during these 8 months and where you sit today about the work.
I feel like I made so much progress. And like what I said earlier, I feel like, I don't know, I mean, this is like completely the opposite of what I told you the last time I saw you, which is like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what's happening right now. But yeah, it does feel like I didn't touch the work for like a while, for maybe 2 months. And in the past few weeks revisiting it, I did see I don't know, it became clear in a strange way. And I was able to also catch up from like a distance on the progress that it's made, that I just maybe didn't see because I was up to here with the whole thing. But yeah, thank you. Thank you thank you so much for seeing the work.
Thanks, Giulio. It's been such a pleasure working with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, we've had some conversations. I think that all works and so many bodies of works in this class, are so personal and confronting, and you all came to a very high degree of vulnerability in addressing really matters that are deeply personal and deeply ingrained in your story. And in your case, JL, this becomes gigantic because, of course, your personal story, your family stories, is waved into your country story and the present. And so we're looking into your life and the life of a community and the life of a country, and we're looking at patriarchal violence, and we're looking at the gender violence, and we're looking into so many powerful things together that, of course, there's quite a level of intensity, and it is very complicated for you as the author to maintain that distance that allows you to weave this fabric between all these aspects. That said, I do remember the first conversations we had, and to look at this now, just fills me with pride. And Laura said it very, very well. Now it's the next step. And I'm still convinced that you need space. I'm still convinced that, maybe a long form of storytelling is what can allow you to weave that fabric in the most effective way. It's certainly not done, but you're on your own thing now, and it's solid. It really is. So you just need the time and the space to deal with it.
Thank you.
And it's been a joy to work with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Elisa. Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Elisa. Thank you, everyone. I don't know what to say. I feel like I'm having an out-of-body experience right now.
Oh, no, you don't have to say anything. It's fine. This becomes very, like, we know it now. It's so emotional also because we all never met in the same room. And I think if we had the chance to meet in the same room, it will all resolve in a big hug, probably, and right, and just a big release. But now there's this distance, of course, that makes everything very, very intense. So it's okay.
Just thank you. So really, I'm just filled with gratitude right now, and I'm excited to see. I'm just excited.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing your story with us, JL. Well, let's going on. Now it's the turn of Kamila Rustambekova.
Yeah, hi everyone. I will share my screen. Yeah, so you see my screen, right?
Yes.
Good. Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Kamila, and I'm originally from Tashkent, Uzbekistan, but I'm currently living in Amsterdam, where I'm doing my master's in film. So the project that I've been working on during this program is called The Home, the Field, and the Flux. So it's an observation of agricultural practices in Uzbekistan, where I follow workers across seasonal crop cultivation and cotton harvesting. So to give a bit of a context, historically, cotton was inseparable and still is inseparable from Uzbekistan, and it's one of the most important narratives of the country. So in general, people have been figuring out ways to bring water even to the driest parts of the steppe for centuries. And later, the Russian Empire and then the USSR implemented irrigation projects to capitalize more on cotton, which led to an ecological disaster, the shrinking of the Aral Sea, the only sea that we had. Today, workers massively migrate with their families across the country to rent fields as independent farmers growing crop, food, while others are employed in cotton picking by giant businesses close to the government. So about my work, so I look at these two agricultural systems that organize the migration, the movement differently. It's seasonal crop farming on rented land and industrial big cotton production. So I observe and document these practices. I follow how each year farmers migrate to cultivate rented land in the Far East region, constructing temporary settlements like we see on this image that function altogether as villages for 8 months at a time from February to September. And these cyclical migrations form a recurring social architecture. So communities are assembled around labor and then being dismantled. So after I'm done in Far East region, I move to the cotton fields, and the harvest takes place in September and October for 2 months across the country, almost everywhere. Drawing people into another seasonal migration. Some people work near their homes and others travel long distances, including to the capital city, also forming temporary communities there. So moving between regions becomes my own yearly cycle, returning to the fields, meeting my old acquaintances, tracing the repetition of gestures and routines that define the harvest. So having this project and working on the sequence and forming an idea for the book, I want to publish it as a book eventually, and I'm now looking for ways of doing that. So at the end of the book, I want to include 2 essays. One essay on environmental impact and another focusing on migrational processes, accompanied by maps tracing seasonal movements across regions. And another project of mine that I started working on recently in parallel is called New Uzbekistan, and I want to share it now. So it's a mosaic. It's a mosaic-like series of stage and documentary scenes I made across Uzbekistan. I'm still making. So here I tried to construct a portrait of Uzbekistan's layered identity through recurring patterns and popular narratives. So most of the photography here is staged. Here we have a man with flowers that has a mother written on them. And he stands in front of an iconic waterfall backdrop, which used to be popular at homes and photo studios throughout the 90s and 2000s. So the inscriptions on flowers are also very popular in Tashkent and are most often addressed to mothers and or girlfriends. Here we have a meeting of classmates with their faces covered by stickers. I originally saw the real image on Twitter and then recreated it because it reflects for me this culture of hiding your face in pictures, which is something mostly women do. And for me, it's a lot about self-representation or self-hiding. Here we see male haircuts in Tashkent. So I spent some time at male hair salons and wanted to capture a contemporary image of a man. Here we have a DIY exhibition I made using my diamond paintings that were made in China and are very popular in Uzbekistan now. So I used to do them just for myself as a kind of hobby, but then I really thought that it reflects also something about the image of our country, what kind of images are accessible to us and what do we buy. So for me, telling is that we have religion, football-oriented diamond paintings or paintings with Paris or cartoons. Here we have mounted police of Tashkent. Here we have a wedding tradition that is a pre-Islamic ritual in which the groom and his companions carry a burning torch on the way to his house. And previously it was just a torch, and now it can take different shapes, but mostly it's a heart shape. Yeah, and this is a documentary photograph. Here we have also a romantic story that I staged between a VIP Uzbek man and a Goth or alt girl. So VIP Uzbek is an image of a wealthy, status-oriented male, very masculine. And this romance moment between them is for me a moment of collision between two worlds, one very conservative and conformist, and the other more free or even marginal. Here we see a performer dressed as a Spider-Man joining a prayer ritual at the wedding. So wedding is also a recurring scene in this series. And here we have birthday decorations that people do when congratulate each other, like at 12 at night. So these inscriptions, they say mother, father, brother, and my name, Kamila, which are also very popular. And yeah, so in general, the title that I use here, New Uzbekistan, is referencing the ideological slogan, Yangi Uzbekistan, that is New Uzbekistan, which has been central to the current government. And they use it as a narrative of national renewal and reform. But I kind of question this ideology, and I see it as a very ambiguous and vague idea, and I'm not even sure it exists in reality, that it goes beyond just spoken words. So I offer my own version of New Uzbekistan that is for me sometimes new and sometimes very ancient, and I want to bridge all these worlds together. That was my presentation. Thank you so much. Thank you, PhMuseum. And our beautiful mentors, Laura and Elisa, and of course, Rosa. Yeah, and all of my classmates. I love everyone so much. And I'm just so happy I did this program.
I have always loved the way you're cheerful. Like you have a very specific way to be cheerful that I don't know. It makes me happy. It's really fantastic. No, just very quickly. I just wanted to comment on how it can be interesting to see, you know, two projects that seemingly are very different, but in the end they're not, because you address some of the topics, they just cross over. And especially in the first case, this is a very long-term project for you. You've been focusing on this for a very long time. So we're looking into larger narratives. I am wondering, you know, how you see them also talking to each other, or how you're imagining outputs for both.
I think generally in my practice, I try to offer an alternative image, of Uzbekistan, of practices we have, in contradiction to the government-driven imagery or Oriental imagery, exoticized imagery. So I think in that way they're similar. And in terms of the display, I would really want to have a book for each of them. I think it's just a nice way of as being a container of all the work that you can go through and experience it. I just find it more intimate and than an exhibition.
It does call for a slower, more personal approach, right? That the idea of just going image after image. I really wish that for you. It's been such a pleasure to see
Thank
this
you.
evolving.
Thanks, Kamila. Thanks so much. The second work is new to me. I've never seen this before, so I'm just responding to it for the first time. But I do agree with Elisa. I think, and with everything you said, actually, presenting two sides of the same country and how they inform each other, but also how each one of them kind of dismisses any of the sort of stereotypes or cliches you might have projected on that one country, because people love to, box everything and give like a very packaged idea of what it is. Like Egypt is ancient Egypt and the pyramids, Uzbekistan is where farming happens. So I really appreciate that now you're presenting a completely alternate narrative of a modern country and how that is. I could see each as a separate book, but maybe very related, like, same design, same size, same everything, almost like different chapters. One is the work on the farming community. Chapter 2 is the one on like contemporary Uzbekistan, or actually the other side of Uzbekistan. We wouldn't say contemporary, it's just the other side. So I think you're onto something here, and it's really interesting to see this other work. Really blown away by that, actually, that you even had time to do that. So, so thank you so much for sharing that. And yes, it's been such a pleasure working with you as well, Kamila. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kamila. So much love also when you finished the presentation. Very appreciated as well. Okay, let's keep going on. Now it's the turn of Giulio Longo.
Hi everyone, I'm hoping you can hear me. I'm gonna share the screen. So my project I'm gonna present today, it's called Le montagne hanno gli occhi. The mountains are looking. I'm Giulio, an Italian photographer of 23 years old, based in Italy, and the project is gonna be about the not-have movement. The not-have movement, it's a political movement created and born more than 30 years ago in order to oppose the construction of a new railway system that would pass through the Valsusa Valley, a valley in the western and northern part of the peninsula. The activists and the residents there since the beginning of the conception of the project, lamented the economical and ecological risk, as well as the lacking of any gains for the broader community. Since then, the state came in the picture and started persecuting, both physically through the means of violence by the police, but also via the law, with trials and prosecution against whoever dare to say anything against the normal ways of beings. In my project, thus, the focus is on how power can be constructed and built and used and wielded by local communities in order to oppose and resist coercion and top-down imposition of ways to move forward in our collective future. The question here are, how can everyday people get to such a level of discontent that they can clash with police, that they can grasp at metal gates with military personnel, with bombs and rifles pointed at them. In my practice, thus I follow the history of the movement spanning 30 years of their existence, but also I employed archival images taken from both from newspapers and TV broadcasting, but also with archival images taken by the activists themselves. This as a form of counter-narration and counterbalance of a narrative employed by the state of thugs and violent criminals stopping a vital and fundamental project for the entire Grofone region and of the entire country. As I said, I employed archival images, and since the creation of the idea of the TAV, this railway system was just a black line cutting through valleys and mountains that were just an obstacle in the minds of the creators for a better future, a more developed future that still today it's not existent. And the major system that were fought back in the days, this railway system spanning from Lisbon to Kiev, it's now non-existent. The only remains are the one that would connect in the minds of the creators Lyon to Turin, which is the one which is only being built, trying to be built today. As I said, the main narrative against the Notava activists was the one of thugs, of violent criminals with nothing better to do than to stop the growth of the entire country for the sake of their backyard. But in truth, the reality was far from it. Here, for example, is Valerio, a now retired public employee that worked for many years in a township in one of the villages in the valley. Also, the activists used video making and image making as a tool for resistance. And here, for example, we can see a still from a video of 2011 in which activists, as they said, freed as an entire area of the valley that was to be used as a construction site, and they freed for 40 days. After a while, the police came, destroyed everything, evicted them, but also abducted 8 activists and beat them for several hours until unconscious. Here, in the video, an activist is taking videos of the helicopter that came in order to rescue the activists from the hands of the police. As I said, the NOTAV movement is still active today. Here activists are going against the construction site in one of the sites in the valley. And although the main narrative taken by the state is the one of the police policing the not of movement, they refuse this narrative, saying that the one policing here is the not of movement. They say that because of the various infiltration of mafia inside the construction company of the TAF, but also because of the high intensity of violence the police is using against them, both physically and through the use of legal system. They say that the one in control here is them, not the police. They are the one choosing where to go and when to go, and the police are just following them. They say they are the one in control. Again, a still from one of the videos, the black spot, it was already there. It's a form of self-censorship due to the heavy presence of trials against them, and so they need to censor themselves and their faces in order not to be prosecuted. The house here is going to be put 300 meters from a new construction site, one of the biggest the valley has ever seen. And all the trees and grass is going to be replaced by cement and workers digging holes in the ground. The house is going to be placed near a rock breaking machine that's going to go on for 7 days a week, 24/7, 24 hours a day for the entirety of the year. No compensation are being proposed as of yet. This picture represents the liberated area that I was talking about before, what they call Libera Repubblica della Maddalena, Free Republic of the Maddalena. They call this place now Il Fortino, the fortress, due to the heavy presence of military personnel, police personnel, but also through the use of metal gates and block roads all near this place, and the use of thermal cameras and system of military systems in the entire area. The question remains then, how can we move forward as a collective rather than an imposition from the top? How can we think and create and fight for a new future while resisting the imposition of one on top of us? Thank you. This is pretty much the end. The project is still ongoing, but all the things you've seen have been produced thanks to this masterclass. So I want to thank everyone that participated and all the people that helped me, Laura, Rosa, Elizabeth, also the various calls I had with other participants that were very helpful. So thank you all.
Thank you so much, Giulio. It's such a complex narrative, isn't it? And I think we knew that from the very beginning. You've always known that, certainly. And I think coming into this program, you knew that. And I think today, in the way you presented it and you talking us through it, you really provided that contextual layer where we could really look at the images and understand that this beautiful landscape is being contested. There's something happening there. And there was a constant reminder, the people that you were photographing, always photographing them also from a position of really protecting their anonymity to a certain degree, which I really appreciate you doing this in this series. But even the images where we see, acts of protest, where we see violence potentially happening, you've also photographed it in a way that really aligns with the general tone of the series. And I appreciate that, because that I think that's actually quite difficult to do. But I think it's a series where there's going to be historical context required through words. I think words are going to be very important here. Almost, I want to say almost an equal weight to the images, because this is where we're going to read all of these contexts that you were telling us today. So I think, you know, it's been an incredible series. It's been incredible to work with you and see you take it as far as it's come today. And yeah, I'm really interested to see where it goes in the future. And I know it's been a difficult series to work on. So thank you for sharing this work with us. And it's been really great working with you, Giulio.
Yeah, you know, building on that, the story of the NOTAV movement in Italy and the way the movement has been criminalized and represented by mainstream media, and the ways in which the communities have kept on going, right, generation after generation, it's quite a remarkable one. And indeed, the complexity in here is, of course, in the story itself, but also in the variety of visual materials involved, ephemera, archival words, as Laura was saying, explanations are needed, context is needed. So that doesn't make it easy for you. I think that, as in other cases that we've seen and we will see in this class, these months were mostly about finding the method, right? Finding a way to address all these different voices and different perspectives and put them in a system that's actually cohesive and can build a multivocal narrative. And I think you're very well on the way on that. It's been a pleasure working with you, really, and I think that you have such a strong motivation and a strong ethic in addressing also the sensibilities and sensitivities of the individuals involved. That makes it appreciate even more. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Giulio. Now is the time for Young Kim.
Hi, everyone. My name is Yoon, or Yeonjung Kim in Korean. I go by Yoon in American name. I'm New York-based photographer specializing in fashion and portraiture, and documentary program has been like, such a fascinating journey to me, because this is like something that I'm not really used to as a photography practice. And I just wanted to thank you for Elisa and Laura and Rosa for everything. It's been such a growth. And I am very happy that I was part of this program. And same as JL, I have to read this one. Because there's a lot of information that I kind of wanted to share, but then like I didn't want it mumbling. So before I begin, I wanted to go simply over about the project. So through the program, I developed a body of, oh wait, I have to share my screen. Okay, give me 1 second.
For a moment, I thought you wanted to present a little bit and then share.
Yes, no, actually I have to share the screen first. Okay. So through the program, I developed a body of work that explores the pressure of identity through portraits of youth. The working title of this project is Honey, I'm Not Used to This Real Love. This self-reflective documentary project, still a work in progress, explores youth, identity, belonging, and self-acceptance through portraits made in New York City and South Korea. Moving between personal memory and observation, the work examines the quiet tension between wanting to fit in and learning how to become oneself. Seen through two cultural contexts, conformist collective South Korea and free, diverse New York City, where self-acceptance and individualisms are often celebrated, the project asks what self-love can mean for young people. Through portraits of youth who reflects both sides of my background, I searched for the version of youth I wish I had known. One that felt more expensive, more self-defined, and less afraid of not fitting in. And I hope that younger generation can embrace as they move through their own journey of growing up. So I would love to share the images first, and then I'll introduce the story behind the project afterward. I grew up in South Korea, and although I've been living in New York for the past 15 years, my family is still there, and I return home every year. In Korea, there is often a sense of safety in blending in with those around you. Standing out is not necessarily celebrated. As Korean, we were often too expected to fit in. When you look out from the Seoul sky, the observation deck overlooking the entire city, the weight of conformity becomes palpable. The view feels like a reflection of culture itself, rows of nearly identical apartment buildings, all built around the same idea of living. In many ways, people are expected to live similarly, moving toward a shared goals that has already been defined for them. When you live in that culture, it can become natural to follow the same trends and aspiration as everyone else, rather than developing your own voice and asking yourself, what do I really like? Who am I? What kind of person do I want to become? What kind of life would make me feel truly happy? Growing up, I never felt that I fit the narrow image of girlhood that surrounded me. In an environment where social expectation felt rigid and restrictive, I learned to survive by denying parts of myself and trying to become what my peers and society expected a girl and later a woman to be. During puberty, influenced by pop culture, I began transforming myself into something more acceptable. Girly, polished, dressed in skirt, heels, and shades of pink. I wanted to belong, but also I wanted to stand out. I was performing identity before I fully understood what identity meant. Fast forward, when I moved to the United States at 22 and eventually settled in New York City, I began to question the ways I had learned to present myself. In New York, especially while working in fashion, I encountered a language of self-love and visibility that had felt unfamiliar to me in Korea, along with young people who seemed to embrace themselves very openly. At first, I romanticized this freedom. When I began this project, I photographed young people in New York as a way of searching for the version of youth I wish I had known. One that felt more expensive and more self-defined and less afraid. However, as I began speaking with the younger generation, I started to see my subjects differently. I've noticed that many young people here, especially those of the current generation, also live with the intense pressure of belong to their peer groups, something that I feel is deeply shared by social media. Furthermore, social media creates a performative space in which people learn to present more desirable version of themselves. So I started to ask, where does identity exist within youth culture? Can self-love truly grow in a society that constantly teaches us how to be seen? What does it mean to become yourself when belonging still requires a performance? So I'm not sure I have the answer, at least not yet. And that is the reason that I remain this work as a work in progress. But what I do know and what I have seen are the growing pains and moments of tension and tenderness and uncertainty that appear in youth, both in the young people I photographed in my own memory of being young and the people that I photographed, whether in South Korea or New York, even though the two places feel so far apart. So now the work lives in that fragile space between wanting to belong and wanting to become oneself. This is all I have for the class. Thank you so much. And thank you for Laura and Elisa. It was just really challenging process for me, but thank you so much for helping me to shape this project further. Thank you.
Thank you for this presentation. I really loved it. And I think I'm just, I'm going to repeat what we talked about a couple of days ago. It has been a journey for you. It was difficult, right? It was difficult because it hit so much close to home for you. And this is about a process of becoming, right? And of reckoning and of understanding and of finding a place to be. And how to represent that when you're on the first line. That's very challenging. But you addressed all these challenges with such grace and yet a firm vision. Your photographs are consistent. And this is not that common. You have a way of creating imagery that works well. And I think that you found that really fine line in storytelling that allows you to talk about yourself while looking at others and while depicting other people. It's very personal, but it's built in a way that communicates. And again, I mean, we will be repeating this probably many times. It's really about the method. And this is another case where it was complicated to find the line, to find the method, but you succeeded really well. I'm very happy to have been able to walk this path with you for a little.
Thank you.
Hi, you. Yeah, I mean, I second what Elisa has been saying. I think the work is, from my point of view, it's autobiographical. I think in the most interesting of ways, because you're not in the image, and yet I can see you in every image, because I feel like every image could be you, or you aspiring that could have been you, or you remembering yourself as a child. So I think you found a subject matter that you're really good at photographing, and obviously that you have an affinity with to photograph. And I think within photography, sometimes that's actually the hardest thing to find, because a lot of times it takes, photographing many things to arrive at that. So I think you found it. And we don't really know how long this work is going to take, and there doesn't need to be a timeline on it. you could just travel with it. And when it feels right, you'll know. This is the mysterious thing about photography. You always do know when you've arrived at the end, and then you can decide on something else, somewhere else to take it. But yeah, it's been really great to be with you with this work. Thank you so much for sharing it, and allowing us to be part of the conversation as you go with this work. And it's been a pleasure working with you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Yun. Okay, now is the turn of Valentino Laua.
All right. Hey everyone. Let me bring up my screen. All right. Okay. Hey everyone. My name is Valentino Laua. I go by Val. Based in Houston, Texas. And this body of work is titled "Sing About Me, I'm Dying of Thirst." So I'll kind of just go right into it. And this work has been ongoing for a few years, and I wanted to have a look at the aspect of play, something that seems so common, seems just as a thought, something no one ever has to think about, yet becomes this moment or experience of tension as faced by Black youth here in the U.S. and I may assume other places as well. I wanted to draw upon kind of my own personal experiences from growing up in the U.S., but also now as a parent who has a preteen, and having kind of watched watched his experiences kind of throughout the years, and recognizing how Black youths tend to be policed in spaces, whether just and just being by playing at a park, hanging out, walking on sidewalks, being in convenience stores, things that kids don't think about. And these are kind of ways that our society has kind of projected upon both their fears and also instilled fear into just the daily act of being a kid. So within this work, it has taken a new shape from when I initially started, and I want to just as I go through it, give a big thank you to Elisa and Laura for a lot of the guidance in allowing me to dig much deeper than I think I ever had with this body of work. And as I've photographed a lot of the people in this in this work over the years, and I wanted to use this. And as I reimagined this work, I looked at recent racial events that have occurred within the past 20 years, but also dug further back to looking at a few pivotal moments, pivotal experiences, and I wanted to kind of recontextualize those experiences with present day subjects, kind of replacing them back into scenes and moments of trauma and stress, and extracted the and their own denial of being their right to be a child and be able to play. So I will be relatively quiet as I go through this, because I think a lot of what I wanted to do with this work is to allow others to feel what it is like to be to kind of navigate the American society as a Black youth. So there really isn't a lot of kind of explanation to give, but however, through some scenes, I will give some historical context to it. Here is actually a scene where a man pours bleach into a community pool because a few Black kids wanted to have a swim in that pool. And I wanted to kind of reimagine this by kind of introducing photographs that showed kids just having fun in the summertime, and as a way to kind of challenge that notion of not being allowed to be in public spaces. in the past 20 years, in the 21st century, we've seen a number of instances of what I would call the park monitor, wherein there have been several incidents where kids were not allowed to be in, Black kids weren't allowed to be in certain parks, whether for one reason or another reason. And just by the act of kind of being there, being a child. And through this work, I also kind of went about and I had conversations with friends and photographed friends and family members, kind of bring them back into some of these scenes as they spend time with their own children, and kind of really navigating how they allowed their kids to kind of go through society. And a lot of these scenes are often very traumatic for not only for those children, but also for the parents, because then you kind of go about thinking, if your child is ever safe when they're not, when you're not around. This is a statement from a police officer while interacting with an 11-year-old girl. And it's, again, it kind of reinforces the systemic ways to which, kids are not being seen as kids, where the fact that the actual statement makes the presumption that that person isn't a child. This was the actual scene where that happened, what the background, and I wanted to kind of, the background of this was all, was an 11-year-old girl being handcuffed and forced into the back of a patrol car. And that interaction I wanted to then kind of bring, replace with a moment of a young girl driving a car as something what might seem so meaningless, carried so much meaning to what originally happened, or how another child kind of experiences a similar situation. Most people have never heard about the town of Rosedale in New York, where a young Black girl and her peers were asked to leave the park and leave the town while they were on the bikes. And this was one of the more pivotal incidents that still kind of overshadows the town of Rosedale, New York, in the present day. But kids were called names. They were chased by a mob of white kids and white adults, to leave the park, but also to leave the city that they were not welcomed into, where they actually live. So this is this is from an interview, but it's also somewhat of a real prayer that, I hate to use the word, but was passed down to me, and also then I've passed down to my son, but also kind of I've heard a lot of friends kind of talk about in very different variations, but it's a common reality of what these daily occurrences are like. And, the only hope is to just make it home. And for me, this is actually an image of home. This is, a lot of these images, a lot of the background here were pulled from my own home in Los Angeles, the home I grew up in, the neighborhood I grew up in, the front lawn I spent a lot of time and a lot of interactions I've had, kind of piecing back a lot of interactions I've had as a youth just in front of my home. Recently, in the city of Rutherford, Tennessee, a judge a juvenile judge who had presided over that county as the sole, determiner of youth's fate in that county for the past 25 years, had essentially been responsible for putting over 3,000 kids in the carceral system. Kids as young as 7, 8 years old. Most of them are, Black kids. And this was work that she had, and I wanted to kind of recreate scenes of, again, kids just having the ability to be kids. But this all stemmed from an instance of 11 children being arrested from their school without ever committing crime. This was somewhat of a major news, but maybe didn't wasn't very well known. But they were surveilled. They were identified through surveillance videos, and also wrongfully identified because the videos didn't have any, they were pretty much blurred. So the backgrounds were actually extractions from that video. Where it was heavily filtered, so you can't truly make up who was actually in the video, and they felt that they needed to, in some ways, teach those kids a lesson by not being able to prevent a crime that was happening. So they weren't actually part of the crime; they were bystanders, and were pulled out of school, arrested, and sent to juvenile facilities just for being a bystander. And lastly, I think this echoes with what most Black kids kind of face within the United States, is this choosing what choosing how they play, and how society sees them or gives them the ability to play, whether from being able to not being able to play with dolls. And also, kind of looking at the commercial aspect of their ability to play, and so that it becomes this, it becomes an ongoing kind of moment or experience where they have to choose. The only way that they're seen to legitimize their ability to play is by being seen as professionals. And that's actually my son in the image. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Valentine. I mean, how do you photograph racism, essentially, and how do you also photograph intergenerational pain and grief that comes from, historic racism, but also like very much racism that's still alive today? And I think you're doing that metaphorically in the images, and it's a language that you recently arrived at. And I'm mostly really loving you describing each image as a scene, because that is very cinematographic rather than the language of photography. And I love that language within your work, because you are creating scenes that, for me, are more liberated than what any photograph can do. And you're really using these layers to create these narratives. But I think what's interesting in them is what you choose to foreground and what you choose to background, because you're playing with memory or with past and present, essentially. And I think it's very interesting. I think you're still gonna do more with this. I feel like you're still, again, finding your language, but I think it's getting more and more strong, and I think you're gonna be pushing this further. And I'd be interested if within this idea of past and present, with so much of this rhetoric being so much alive, if you are gonna sometimes going to reverse the narrative, so the racism, those scenes will be in the foreground, and what you're actually wanting is in the background. Do you know what I mean? So it's simply reversing the color and the black and white, but I'm talking about larger metaphors and something deeper happening here.
Yeah.
But I think it's I'm generally really interested in what you've done with the work, and from where we began and where we've arrived today, it's been a massive journey, and I really appreciate you sticking with it, and coming that far. And I'm really interested to see where it goes.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks, Valentine. It's been really great working with you.
Yeah, likewise. It's definitely been a journey, and you both have pushed me in all the best ways than I thought I wanted to, do with this work. And to something JL also said earlier, just kind of leaving it alone for time and just sitting with it without doing anything. It made me dig deeper and kind of go down towards a research path to figure out how I want to recontextualize moments from the past, incidents from the past into the work, and in some cases rephotographing certain scenes in new ways. So I truly appreciate also allowing me to play. I think that both you, Laura, and Elisa gave me, the permission to kind of be playful with this work. And I think that also changed the way I was initially approaching it. So yeah, truly grateful for your guidance.
Thank you for your words. And the pleasure, frankly, has been ours. And I second, what Laura said. I think that once you found the visual conversation between the archival materials and the images of nowadays, and how to create this connection between time, right? Because we're talking about a condition that has been existing for so long and that has consequences through generations, and yet is far from being resolved. And at the same time, there's the other energy in there, which is the one of healing and of trying to do things differently and to push childhood as childhood should be. And so I think that once you found this way of dealing with the images and juxtaposing in different moments in times, it did click, and it did start expanding into another direction. I don't have questions, because I'm just really curious and genuinely also interested in see how your body of work will evolve. And in the ways it can be presented also in different platforms and with different methods. So thank you very much for also your trust and for sharing all of this.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks everyone as well. It's definitely truly been a great pleasure to learn with and from all of you. So yeah.
Thank you very much, Val. Now it's time of Naoual, Peleau.
So hello everyone. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Great. So my name is Naoual. I'm a French photographer. I mostly use photography as an experimental tool. The story I'm about to show is like my first time telling a story in this way. So I'm gonna share my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
All right. So this story is about my mom. Her name is Miriam, but her artistic name is Leila because she's a painter. I started this project maybe a few months before entering the workshop. And this project was born after cancer took my mother's voice. She has a throat cancer. So no more words. So I was thinking maybe I can use images to tell a story of our bond and also give her a new way of expressing herself and talking in a way. Our story is built around the Algerian heritage she is leaving me through rituals, moment with henna, in which I soak my film rolls before developing them. We use henna almost every month with my mom. As I told you, I use photography with a lot of experiments. And for me, the film soup was a way of showing glitch, and a disease in a life can appear as a glitch. I'm also learning to speak and to write Arabic, so her last words can be in her first language. The notion of inheritance is a central part of the work, even if it's not always shown. And it's also to be understood from the perspective of the last generation, because I am the last one. I am the youngest in my family. And I'm also the last one because I'm not going to have any children. So it's a way of asking the question, why there is an heritage if it's ending with me, actually. Also, these pictures are like a pre-grief. I think I can say that the image is a way to be with my mom as she's approaching the end of her life. And the photography helped me to understand my place in my family and with my mom. And it's a work in progress, so I'm just presenting a first part, and I will continue as long as I can. It will be a mix of pictures from now, very recent pictures I took, even from last week, and also some older pictures of my mom that my dad took, that I took, and I think this one is a self-portrait it's a portrait of my mom, but I look like her a lot, so of course I'm thinking it's a self-portrait. In this picture, she was younger than me right now. And for me, it's important to show her when she was not really a mom on some of the pictures. She's a woman before me. Pictures with the henna, because we also use it a lot to draw on ourselves. This is when she's making it. The henna on her, because she doesn't want me to put the henna on her. It's very symbolic for her to do it on her own, because as she is sick, there is a lot of things she cannot do. So when there is something she can really do on her own, she prefers to do it. I really like these pictures because a lot of things are happening. I really like the shadow of the earring on her neck, the hand gesture, her profile. For me, it's a very important picture. This is her hand on which I draw with gray ink. That's us when she's doing the henna for me. I may not describe all the pictures because I think you can also read them by your own mind and projecting what you want on the pictures. Like, drawing is very important in our bond because she's a painter and I also draw. Not very often, but I also draw. So I think it was very important to include that in the pictures. Some of the pictures can be a bit more enigmatic, like there is a story here, but you can understand it the way you want. Another important picture, she's holding some kind of shield she used for radiotherapy because it's part of her treatment. It was, I think, the second kind of treatment she had. She had surgery, radio, chemo, and now it's the last kind of therapy she's on now. It's immunotherapy. And this kind of device is not very well known. A lot of people don't know that you can use this to protect yourself from the treatment, and it's kind of a paradox that you need to protect yourself from something which is supposed to cure. That's why I wanted to take this picture. This is our own two hands. For me, it's much more symbolic to show them open toward each other because we don't really touch each other in my family, but we always have a hand for each other, but not in like holding way. And also drawing is connecting us. This is part of the object she used as a painter. And I think these pictures look like a bit the one with the shield. I also like this one because even if it's the end of her life, you can still see a blank canvas. And for me on these pictures, it's like space and time, because she has the space to paint on this canvas and she has the time to do it. So I can really like this picture. Food, also very important in our family, and it's like it's a very particular way of preparing food, cutting the head of a tiny chicken. And this is the last part of her treatment. It's just like some kind of treatment she has like in a vein in her heart. Very symbolic also. The shield again. This is my dad close. He's not really in the pictures, but he's here in his own way, like just an envelope. So I'm writing in Arabic, but I'm learning, so I may make some mistake, but I think I don't need to correct myself. It's part of the process to learn to make mistakes. So if you can read Arabic, it's a translation from French. So maybe if you are reading it in English, it may appear a bit different, but I really like the fact that from one language to another, it will say something maybe a bit different. So I can translate for you, and it says, I'm scared that my mom will die. And it's like an inside thought with a blurred self-portrait, which is my favorite kind of self-portraits. On this picture, you can see the henna. You can see it's a bit orange, it's a bit glitched. And so when my mom marked my hand with the henna, I put on a glove so I won't stain anything and it will stay longer on my skin. And this is what you can see in this picture. This is a very old picture of my mom. She was already a mom right there. She's a mom, she's an artist, and she asked me to take a picture. It's like the background of my childhood. And all the paintings you see on this screen are no longer with me because everything is sold now. So it's a very strong memory for me. And she really looks maybe like someone else, like she's more like an artist than my mom. And this is a very recent one. Here she's my mom. I like the contrast between this one and this one. I mean, you can read how long the life was, and something I really love. Another blurry self-portrait, and here the text says, don't ask me to be ready for when you are gone, which is quite emotional, but it's what I think. But on this picture, it's more like I'm talking to her than just a thought. And again, that's my mom, but before I was born. It's a picture took by my dad during their honeymoon. They were not parents at this time, just two people just married. And the text around my mom says, the woman before my mom. Because for me, it's important to end on this picture because it's, you go back to who you were at the end. I can show you maybe all the pictures another time without talking, so you can have another look. And I think this one is my favorite picture of my mom. And when I found it, I thought like, this is the story I want to tell. Not only like my mom, not only our relation, but who she is. And thank you for listening to me. If you have any questions, please.
Thank you so much for your presentation. I think it's very emotional and
Yes. Sorry, I should have
very
told you.
touching.
Sorry, one moment. Naoual, can you stop sharing the screen?
Absolutely.
Thanks.
And yes, it's kind of an emotional subject. And I know it can be difficult for a lot of people because I'm dealing with like a delicate subject, especially with like everywhere in the world. It's almost Mother's Day. I understand it can be hard to digest this kind of story.
Well, I think that, of course, you're absolutely right, but I think that from our side, it's just a lot of gratitude also for the vulnerability and for trusting us enough to share such a difficult moment, especially in a phase where in which things are developing, right? It's happening right now, so it makes it very, 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 very intense. From a photographic point of view, you have been working very hard in these months to find this system that we've been talking about, right? How to tell this story and how to tell it in a way that is able to take your mother, her life, her presence, her strength, her art at very front and center of the conversation. Of course, there's a disease around, and there's grief, and there's a lot of pain, and there's so many things going on. But this is first and foremost a story about your mother and a story about an artist, right? So you had it very clear from the very beginning that yes, this is very emotional and this is very intense. At the same point, this is also celebration of an incredible woman. And I think that you found very successful ways to channel and direct these points of view and this way of dealing with it. There are a few pictures where, for example, you put you realize the mise-en-scene of the radiotherapy mask of your mother with the paintings, right, and with the flower and objects, and those speak very, very powerfully without going towards an overly emotional representation, or on the other hand, a colder representation. You've been walking a very fine line here, and it wasn't hard. And then towards the end, you got into calligraphy, and then you started inserting text in a way that feels almost a performance in the most beautiful meaning of it, where you're really interacting with the images and really having another layer of involvement. I really wish that this project will keep going for as long as possible.
Thank you.
And I really hope to see a lot more images.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Noelle. Yeah, I feel like Elisa said it really well, to be honest with you. Because I speak Arabic, I could read what you said, so it really hit home. I think for me, I feel like you really found the language of art to kind of find a way to communicate, but also bring your mother in as a collaborator during this delicate time. And I think really a big achievement with this. And I feel like the hands with the henna are becoming more of a powerful layer in the storytelling, because we understand from what you've said that it's a very important bond. That's something that you and your mom, you've always communicated through the language of henna, whether it's on the hair or the hand. So I think those images are becoming more and more powerful. Especially for me, the image that really sticks out is the one with the two hands and the line connecting them. I feel like this image alone tells the whole story in the simplest of ways. So yeah, I really agree with Elisa. I think you've really found a way to communicate through everything that you're experiencing as well, and still managing to go and create these images. So yeah, it's just been a real privilege really to be with you, and thank you so much for being so open and transparent to bring this to us and to allow us to be parts of it. And I'm really looking forward to see where this goes.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And also thank you to all my classmates. It was a pleasure to work with you guys, and you're amazing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Naoual. Now it's the turn of Rosalia.
Right. Hello, everyone. Hi, I'm Rosalia Consadopoulou. I'm going to share my screen, but I've been living and working in the UK and specifically in London for the last 6 years, where this body of work has took place, and it started around the time that we were doing, that we started at PhMuseum all together. And it started very accidentally by me attending a space that it felt like time had stopped. And at first it was mostly the decor. Everything was sort of different than I'd ever experienced before in terms of a club, because it was a club, but a different kind of club. And it was the velvet curtains, the wood paneled ceilings, a big hall that people can move around and dance, a lot of memorabilia, notice boards with a lot of different notices about bingo. And I was wondering where I am. And by exploring this a bit more, I realized I am in what is called Working Men's Club in London. These started around 1853 in the UK. They started around industrial areas near railworks and mining works around the UK. And at first they were supposed to be separated from places like pubs or bars, so there was an alcohol ban. So it existed from the working class, for the working class, for them to actually get educated. Activities would be from gardening, chess, obviously the ones that have stayed until today, which is bingo, raffles, snooker and pool. But what really drew me in them is the community. You could see a lot of mixed generations, a lot of older people, a lot of younger people, a lot of families, children. And I think up until then, I hadn't seen maybe a type of community like this in London for myself, and as an immigrant. And around the 1950s, I think this don't show, sorry. I think these are archival pictures that are not showing. Around the 1950s, there was the golden age of working men's clubs. A lot of famous people would go and perform, people would go out a lot more, and by then obviously alcohol would be sold and in actually better and more affordable prices than other places. So it was very cheap and more affordable entertainment. But by the 70s, these communities that started working men's clubs started to fade, and they started to fade as well. So currently we have around 1,800 clubs, whereas 30 years ago we had around 4,000. And it really is a question about them being an act of resistance, considering they are places that are coming from the working class. Nowadays, some of them have changed form. So some of them, for example, in East London, there's a club that is a fully queer club. And it's interesting to see the new generation coming in and doing more things whilst maintaining the old and the new. So. Yeah, that's everything. Can't see you, sorry.
Are you is that it, Rosalia? Or did you want to?
Yes, that's everything.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, it's I think like I can't remember who I said this to earlier, but I think you managed to get there and open the door in the end. For a while we weren't really sure, but I think you're there. And I think what I'm seeing in this particular edit, because you also have some new pictures, is I think you're a really good observer of architectural details. You have these little vignettes of these spaces that in my own mind, when I look at them, they look like they probably haven't really changed for, I don't know, many years. We're just seeing them in color, this vibrant color that you photograph. And with that, we see these images, the archival images. So it shows us the presence of people in the past, coupled with the spaces in the present. I think that's an interesting dialogue there. But I think the work is also a larger commentary on how in a city like London, small things always disappear, or they're always forced out of the way because bigger things are coming. You know, it's like New York, any big city, it's like the small person kind of disappears because the bigger person is going to come and push them out of the way. And I think essentially, in a way, it's a story about that. Of course, it's a story about gentrification, essentially, but that is in a way what gentrification does. So I think within the work, and I hope you can continue to work on this and continue to approach it from, you know, the personal doorway that you've discovered for yourself, that these are spaces that really interest you. You've found your own community. You know, they've also connected with you, obviously, because they're allowing you there, you're photographing them. But I think you can also approach it confidently from within a broader context of now you've taken this on and you're potentially creating images that are preserving these spaces that we don't really know if they're going to be there in 5-10 years time. They might also have to shut down. So I think now you're onto something that's much bigger than maybe you imagined when you started this work. And I think this gives it a bigger sense of urgency if you were to continue with this work. Because you live in London, I know you've been there for a while, and we know how London is. Things come and go and they just disappear. So thank you so much for the work and for sharing it today. And I'm really, you know, curious to see where you take it.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah, I really agree with Laura. And I think that by adding also the archival imagery that you included for this presentation today and this longer connection through time, it really makes it more powerful. It's a body of work that needs to continue, and it will be important to document. You know, we've been mentioning in our conversation on how this speaks also to places outside of London and how this has been spread in the territory. So there's definitely a lot to say about this. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Elisa, and thank you to everyone. You've all really inspired me in this process. So thank you all.
Thank you very much, Rosalia. Now is the turn of Paula Madrigal Quiros.
Hi, everyone. I'm going to share my screen. Well, hi, I'm Paula. I'm from Costa Rica, and I'm going to present you Heartburn. I'm going to join June and JL, and I'm going to read so I don't stutter. I like to describe this body of work as a desperate attempt to hold on to what disappears when there is no one to remember with. And I wanted to include this quote by Roland Barthes, which has been on my head for the past couple of years since I've read it, which says, "Since my mother's death, I've had a kind of digestive fragility, as if I'd been touched where she took care of me, my food, even though she hadn't prepared it for months." Okay, so Heartburn began in 2021, following my mother's breast cancer diagnosis the year before. At first, the diagnosis was hopeful. We believed treatment would work. The body of work began collaboratively between mother and daughter as a way of dealing with uncertainty, but also as a promise to ourselves. One day this would simply become a distant memory. Without fully realizing it, our roles began to shift prematurely. As her condition worsened, I became her primary caregiver. At 20 and 49 years old, respectively, terrified but standing side by side, we entered unfamiliar waters together. Then came the pandemic, isolation, hospitals, scans, needles, medications, radiotherapy, nausea, and exhaustion. Documenting everything was her idea. We wanted to expose the brutal reality we were inhabiting together, believing that eventually all of it would be behind us. The war became a promise, proof that we would survive this. But we never got to finish the body of work, nor any of the others we imagined afterwards. When my mother's health deteriorated further, I kept photographing compulsively, clinging to a version of reality where we would still come out of this together. At that time, I only felt safe in two places, behind a camera and inside my notebooks. They allowed me to detach from reality whenever I needed to. After putting up a good fight, death finally caught up with us. My mother died peacefully by my side in our home. Afterwards, I was left with photographs, notebooks, a camera, and a hole in my chest that burned unbearably. For years, I didn't know what to do with the images. They did not feel like mine, as if someone else had taken them. But I kept photographing, I kept writing too, although I became incapable of expressing myself in my mother tongue. Everything came out foreign somehow, either through English or through images. The body of work slowly transformed into something else. It became about living in the aftermath of loss, about surviving drastic change while feeling emotionally suspended in time, about trying to understand how the world continues moving after someone who anchored your sense of safety disappears. I returned to my childhood home in Turrialba, a rural town that has always carried a difficult emotional weight for me because of family history. That same year, massive floods physically altered the geography of the town. Even the place that once felt fixed and familiar had changed irreversibly. Grief began contaminating everything I knew. I still do not have the courage to listen to her voice notes. My phone has become an archaeological site dedicated to her existence. Shortly after the first anniversary of her death, I began developing unexplained digestive disorders. It felt as though grief itself had lodged inside the body, demanding to be digested. The title heartburn emerged from that contradiction, a physical symptom, but also the sensation of carrying a burning wound internally. At the center of this body of work is an obsession with memory. Forgetting feels unbearable because forgetting risks making everything feel insignificant. The photographs become fragments, traces, evidence that she existed, that we existed together. Over time, however, something slowly shifted. For a very long time, grief darkened everything around me, but eventually, almost against my will, I began noticing beauty again, slowly. And I close with this handwritten phrase from one of my diaries. My mother took a loan to buy a small piece of land to finally build her house. The house was never built. And I wanted to thank everyone at PH, and especially my classmates, because this has been a very challenging process for me, and it's been very demanding emotionally. So thank you to all of you for being there and taking care of me.
Paula, what can I say? You've been incredibly brave and like other in this class, again, the level of vulnerability and of willingness to share the depth of events and processes like this has been incredible and remarkable, really. Yet amidst all the pain and all the difficulty, you also found your own very graceful, very poetic way to tell this story or to start telling this story. And recently you decided to add these photographs of your mother as a kid that you found, which really add this other layer of temporalities. And we've been talking about temporalities, right? Because you're dealing with something that happened, that has a course given in history. But then with the storytelling, you add layers and you start making connection with what came before and what maybe came after and how this has impacted and affected everything else. And I think that that's a very, very powerful way to address something that it's very difficult to address and to unpack. So I keep thinking that this is a book. I really wish for you the strength and the space and the time to keep working on this and see how to give it a restitution that really allows for this body of work to exist fully because it deserves it. And just thank you. It's been a pleasure. Thanks again.
Thank you, Elisa. Thank you so much.
Hi, Paula. Yeah, I think I actually don't have much. I know I say that every single time, but I really don't have much to add to what Elisa just said, because I think her thoughts round up everything that I want to say, but also just wanted to add my voice that I think when you're ready and when the time is right for you, I think it would be really good to see what you would make of this. Is it going to be a small book? Is it going to be a zine? Is it going to be something that you just keep for yourself? Is it going to be images that sit in a box? Whatever it's going to be, I'm sure it's going to be something that is very special and intimate and you, and something that really honors your mother. So yeah, thank you for bringing us with you on this journey and being so open about it. And I know I can imagine that it was really, really difficult, can only really imagine that. So thank you for sticking it out and always being present and engaged and listening and going back and reassessing images when it's really your own story. I mean, everybody here is really doing your own story. So I think a lot of times the feedback can be really difficult and maybe even painful sometimes, but it all comes from a position of moving the work forward. And I think you've definitely done that. So thank you so much. And I'm really interested to see where it goes.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Paula. Thank you very much. And now is the time for Laura Dudu.
Hey, thank you so much. Rosa, I wonder if you could just share the video and
Yeah,
play it before I say anything. Thank you.
perfect. And this one, can you do this one? Can you hear the sound? Yeah, perfect.
吃吗？这么大一口啊？能吃完？摸摸我，你帮我挠挠。我挠挠你，你挠挠我。你挠挠我。想什么呢，外婆？外婆，我给你唱歌吧。外婆，外婆，我给你唱首歌吧。啊，好不好？给你唱首歌，我最近新学的，我不太会唱啊。给你看看歌词。我感觉我唱的不太好哦。你听过这首歌吗？给你唱。看看这首歌怎么唱的。慢呀我，蔡琴。你听过这首歌吗？你听过吗？好听吗？你还想听吗？听吗？你听过这首歌吗？听过吗？外婆，外婆，想听吗？还是不听？听不听？这是什么响呀？是不是测血压呢？我给你唱吧，外婆，我给你唱吧，你听不听？我给你挠挠。
一天，就像一张破碎的地脸，难以开口道再见，就让一切走远。这不是件容易的事，我们却都没有骨气，让它淡淡地来，让它哗哗地去，到如今年复一年，我不能停止怀念，怀念你，怀念从前。但愿那海风再起，只为那浪花的手，恰似你的温柔。到如今年复一年，我不能停止怀念，怀念你，怀念从前。但愿那海风再起，只为那浪花的手，恰似你的温柔。再给你唱一首。
再不好拉，夹子筷子夹，筷子夹呗。得换针夹，再换针夹。哎，对对对对对，对啊。
这一直想着烧不完呢。
上来吧，上。对吧？他们说的。
外婆啊，快这儿啊，外婆。
哎，
把这个灯关上吧。
Thank you all for watching it. I think the last quote I'll be sharing at the end before I deliver my thanks would be this last page from the book that I've been reading a lot about. It's from the Korean writer Han Kang, which also a Nobel Prize winner for her writing Vegetarian. And this book and the last one is called All Whitenesses. I will read in Chinese, Mandarin, and then I showed the English quote, and I might go back and forth. 借由你的双眼去看白菜心里面最明亮的地方，会看到隐藏在那里最珍贵的嫩叶。With your eyes, I will see the chill of the half moon rising in the day. At some point, those eyes will see a glacier. They will look up at that enormous mass of ice and see something sacred, unsullied by life. 我会在白叶树林的沉默中看到你，会通过冬日太阳升起的窗户的寂静看到你，会从跟随着斜照在天花板的光线而晃动的灰尘中看到你。Within that white, all of those white things, I will breathe in the final breath you released. Thank you so much for all the support for me to making these things, the work happen. And also, I think without the vulnerability, fragility, and that brave, almost in some way cruel authenticity that the whole cohort and also the mentors have offered, I will not be able to confront something so beautiful, but also so crushing at the same time. Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Eliza. Thank you, Rosa. And thank you, Yun, and who I met in person, and everybody else. I'm looking forward to come to cross paths in our futures. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Laura, for sharing. I'm seeing this video, I think, for the third time, and I feel like every time I see it, it still gets really emotional for me. And I think it's amazing how much you can say and do with a single shot video of the same scene with just little things happening and very little dialogue, but it really does take you on an emotional journey. And I think you're really good at doing that. I think you're very minimal in how you in the final outcomes of what you create. I think it's quite minimal touch, but actually there's a lot of thought that goes into it to create this minimalism that then creates something that's really, really evocative and deep. And I think it's the kind of work that would resonate with anybody really, about just seeing their loved one in a situation like that, knowing they're here today, but will they be here tomorrow? That's the question, right? And I think this is where this work sits. It's about this uncertainty and the pain that comes from this uncertainty. So that's very powerful. And I know your work in general deals a lot with documenting your grandparents. So it would be good to experience your work as a whole sometime. I just can't imagine consuming all of these different elements at once in an exhibition or in a book or whatever it is that you decide to produce. I think that would sit very, very powerfully. So I look forward to the day where I would experience that. So thank you so much. And it's been great working with you.
I feel that myself and Laura keep, we are good sparring partners, and we do see things in a very similar way, most often than not. So I'm grateful for her to be able to word things when I'm also thinking them. But it's not often that we deal with video, right? Most of the time we deal with photographic works that exist as still images. And in your work, Laura, we are transported into a different way of experiencing imagery, right? At the same time, it's like it's extremely photographic, the way you set it up, the way it's cut. Even though it's one unique shot, you were really good at setting it up in terms of composition and in terms of the strength of the imagery that does make use of very articulated skills to talk about something so emotional. We're having a lot of grief today in the presentation, and this is something that's very also natural because it's in everyone's life at a certain point. And you all have been finding different ways to represent that and different ways to address that. And yours is yet different from everybody else. At the same time, extremely successful. I'm very, very, very grateful to have been able to experience it and to see it evolve. So I wish you really the best of luck in your endeavors now, and I look forward to see how this evolves. So thank you again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Laura. It was, I was very emotional as well while watching it. And so thank you very much for sharing it. Now is the time of Maria Beatriz de Vilhena.
Hi, Sharing screen. Okay. So I'm also bringing a personal project in the sense that it comes from a family narrative, but it's intertwined with a historical project and a bit political also. It's called Stolen Ink from the Equator Line. And I take this line from this sentence that I found in one of the archives that I will explain later. So the story is about a relative of mine called Francisco Pires Barata. He was a military, even though he was against the government while we lived in dictatorship. And after this event occurred in one of the former colonies in São Tomé, he was appointed governor because he was a young, kind of low-rank military, and was a way to appease the events that happened there. So to give a bit of context about this place, it's called São Tomé and Príncipe. It's a small island country in the Equator Line. It is a former Portuguese colony. It was discovered by Portuguese in the 1400s, and it worked as in a kind of a plantation system, like many countries that were colonized in Africa. So mainly it worked with the workers, like forced workers from other bigger countries in Africa that were brought there to work in cocoa and coffee plantations. And around 1953, there was a big massacre that happened. And I work a lot about stories that are difficult to understand because historical truths are difficult to find. So this narrative it's divided in between the government's perspective, that there was this communist revolt that instigated this, and the perspective of the people from there, that they were trying to force them, also the natives from the island, to work in these plantations because they were starting to be less profitable, and forced labor from other countries was becoming to be a bit more difficult because we were already in the 50s. All of the other countries, they already did the decolonization after World War II, and Portugal was still thinking they could hold on to this system. So I'm going to read some things because there are some historical documents mixed with the archival documents from my family, some pictures that I took there during this artistic residency that I did there now. So before I showed the military insignias of my relative, and now I have some letters from historical figures from São Tomé denouncing the massacre that happened. And on the right side, you can see that they are talking about how many people they died. And they say 28 native people died. Some of them were forced into prison and then they were thrown at sea. And still to this day, I went to this place and people from São Tomé, they don't go to the sea in this part because they believe it's haunted by all of the presence of the people that were thrown there to the sea. So after this massacre, the former government that was there, governor, he was kind of exiled. And this relative of mine, he started to act as the governor, even though it was a really, really short tenure. So after he started office, there was one of the first presidential visits to the island because they were trying to cover up all of this event. Also because international media was much more focused on what was happening there. It was more and more difficult to cover up what Portuguese were doing in this country and what they were doing in Africa and the Portuguese colonies. So here I have a mix of archivals from my family, like this, the back of this picture, some pictures from newspapers. My relative is the one in the center with the president of the government at the time. Some pictures from this ceremony that was really important. It was all over all of the newspapers. Also here some bits of old newspaper that I found in my family and transcription of my relative's own biography that he wrote, handwritten, and in all of his life, there was this short paragraph about São Tomé just saying that he was the military governor during from 53 to 56. And these are some pictures that I found of him. That's, for me, they were, I think, the starting point of this project because he's like a big figure in my family. I kind of speak to him as a hero, as a myth, because it was my family's perspective, he fought against the powers there and he tried to do his best to defend the people. And he went against these plantation owners, and that's why he lasted so little time there. And these pictures are the ones that I think started giving me the curiosity to pursue this project, because I always found them so strange, because I think they are taken in the governor's palace in São Tomé. And for me, it looks like he's trying to become comfortable in this position, and it doesn't quite fit in. So it's I always bring them up because for me they were the starting point of my curiosity around this all of this story. Here in the back, so I try to work on this project kind of as a storyboard. So all of the pictures are kind of collages between personal public archives and pictures that I took now. And in the background, you can see him years later ranking the troops that were about to embark on the war, on the colonial war in the 60s to the 70s until our independence, on our revolution in 74 and their independence. And here is a letter written by one of the politicians that was in exile in Rabat at the time. And he later became president of São Tomé when São Tomé was finally independent. And the letter that he wrote denouncing everything that happened there. So I've collected some of these letters that people wrote about what happened there because they all give different kinds of perspective. This is a cemetery that some people took me there, and they tried to explain me that most of the graves, they are not marked. And only a few other people, they still know which one belongs to which grave. And some of them are people that survived the massacres and that for them they are heroes. But their government still doesn't quite recognize them as heroes. So they never gave them proper nameplates. They have a small memorial, but that's it. And this kind of history is kind of disappearing because the only people that still know this, it's like mouth to mouth knowledge, and they are slowly disappearing. And for me, it was quite impressive that a thing that was so big, it has a memorial, but not a lot of people know about the story. In Portugal, nobody knows about this. It's really, we don't learn it in history books. And there, I think people will at some point start to lose the collective memory of this also. And this is also a historical picture of the cars going into to repress the rebellion. Because what started this rebellion was the native people from there. They thought they were going to be forced to work also in the plantation. And the government, what said, it was that this was a communist instigation for them to rebel. So they convinced the government and the plantation owners, they all went to repress this rebellion, and that's what led to this big massacre. So on the background, we have the cars of the troops going in to repress the rebellion, and on top there's a letter of someone that is going to restore a process against the former governor with all the names of the people that died during this massacre. Also, this is a picture from the trial of all the people that survived and they're considered heroes. And with the official document that the colonial government at the time, they spread around the island saying that they're really sorry about the repression, but they had to stop this because they didn't understand what the people, they try to convey the narrative that these people were instrumentalized by the communists and that they had no purpose to rebel, and that the government tried to do their best for the peace of the people on the island. This is a document that is also in my family's archive. Is a piece of the communist newspaper that's like in this really, really thin paper that was supposed to be really easily dissolved or destroyed or could be easily destroyed if someone would find it, because it was clandestine at the time. It was illegal, and it's from 53, and they denounce everything that happened. And here are some pictures of some of the survivors that went to trial, and they in the end they survived, and they're considered heroes from all of this process. And when I was there now, I was fortunate to be able to investigate a bit and to be inserted in this artistic residency there with people from there that explain me more about this. So I visited some places. This is one of the biggest hostage, which is the plantation system with the big house and the workers' house, and in one of the places that started where the rebellion started. And this I thought it was really important to insert because it's a poem by Conceição Lima, which is one of the most famous poetess from São Tomé. She just recently died weeks ago, and I met her there. And in Portuguese, we'll translate to English. It's the dead, they ask, why do roots sprout from our feet? And she wrote this about the massacre years after, but still really present in her poetry. And here I took some pictures of the landscape because I wanted also to convey this idea of this idyllic island that people search so much for their beauty and the flora and the fauna, and the fact that it's pristine, but it hides all of this dark history. And this is a picture also of my relative. And this is the same landmark and that I showed in the picture before that I took, that I found in one of the postcards that he kept and that he brought with him, because it's one of the big images that we all have when we think about São Tomé. Here on the right, I have an image that I took there now in one of the main squares, where you can still see the landmarks that the Portuguese left there with all of the marks of the discoveries and colonial history, and an official bulletin with the invitation for everyone to go to greet my relative upon his arrival. And this is something that I found also amongst his belongings that doesn't have much to do with his history, but I found it really interesting because it's a letter from Calypso, which was the boat that Jacques Cousteau used to explore a lot of countries, where they're asking permission from my relative to go to São Tomé to explore all of this fauna and flora that are pristine and they're supposed to be a big paradise. This image I took in the place that is one of the most heavy places there. It's a place where they imprisoned some of the people and they forced them to work. And the people that they died at Red Sea, that I explained before, that they still don't go into the sea there. And now it's just this empty space. So I took a picture there and also have put it with the only picture that I found of my relative as a child, which was already torn up, and I thought it's interesting. And here's some letter that he sent to my family while I was there, and a picture from his hometown in Portugal. Also, I tried to use some of the, not just letters, but small objects and documents that I found within his possessions. And he had also these stamps from Portugal before the revolution. And this is the letter that I used for the title, because it says, Happy Easter, I miss you all. This is written with a bit of ink stolen from the equator line. And I took a picture from the equator line with the mark, with the armillar sphere on top, which is the big symbol of the Portuguese discoveries and colonialism. And here is one of the main squares also in the city, also with the three Portuguese navigators that discovered São Tomé. They're still there with this obelisk. And on top I put his resignation letter because he couldn't deal with the problems that he found in São Tomé, so he eventually resigned shortly after. And to finish is a postcard that I found with the name that we call him in my family, because we don't use the Francisco Pires Barato, we call him Cousin Chico. So I wanted to end with a bit of a family-related thing and not just so much the political aspect. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this presentation, and congratulations. I think this is the first time for me to see the project evolving in this iteration, right?
Crazy.
Yeah, and it's been so difficult because, of course, on one hand, you have a family history here to deal with, right? And you have you're trying to tell a story that has been affecting a community, the population of Sao Tome and its history for so long, and it involves family pictures, it involves archival materials, it involves opening up a conversation about the consequences of colonial domination, consequences of colonial administration over all the aspects of a community's life, including the riots and all the attempts of said community to get rid of those systems of oppression. So it's a very, very intense project to deal with. And you've been struggling rightfully in how to handle these materials. And we're going again to that conversation about the layers of time, right? How can you talk about the past from a contemporary point of view and putting them in a relation that becomes constructive and that becomes somewhat powerful? And I think again, I was happy to see these solution, because that was an open question. That was something that for quite some time you were really struggling with, especially because of the difficulty of traveling back and forth and constructing everything in situ. So congratulations for that. It's not over.
No.
I'm sure, right? there's quite some work in there to do, and also I think that what you've built so far will allow you to be even more solid and even more outspoken on where your position is facing all of this and telling this story, right? How to position yourself as an author and as a narrator. So I'm really happy you got so far, and I'm really looking forward to what comes next, to how will this evolve.
Thank you.
Hi, Maria. I'm also really happy to see this final iteration, which I had not seen before. And I think one of the things that really stands out is the impressive amount of archive material that was in your family archive, but also that you've gathered yourself. And I think that's really something to commend you on, because oftentimes with stories like that, the difficult items is really doing that research and that investigative work to find those documents. And you've really done well to find all of those layers. I think one of the images that really stood out for me, and you almost kind of commented on it in passing, but I feel for me, this is personally, it's one of the most important images, is that small photograph of your family member that's torn, and you kind of put it together so delicately and carefully. I feel like this image is a metaphor for everything you've been doing. You've been putting this man back together and going back and doing the research. You've kind of, you're building the story by putting it together in the same way that you're putting this picture together. And it makes me wonder if that photograph should play a bigger role in this narrative. I don't know what, but I feel like maybe it can, but that's obviously up to you. Now, I think what Elisa said about the layers of time and this juxtaposition of past and present, which you do so well to narrate this narrative, I think it's such a great tool, but I wonder if with such a complex narrative, repeating it so much simplifies it. So I wonder if maybe as you move forward, you find other tools also, which I'm sure you will, seeing where you started and where you are now. I think it's an incredibly powerful tool, but I think with a complex narrative like that, given the amount of research material that you've gathered and the photographs that you've made, I wonder if sometimes there should be a decision about, the past is now taking more precedent, or actually the present is taking more precedent. And then you kind of, play with the viewer as well, and you let the viewer also engage with the narrative in a different way. But honestly, I really commend you on everything you've done. You started with just saying, I found these archives, I'm going to this place, I have no idea what I'm going to find, and look at where you are today. Incredible. So thank you for sharing this work with us, and I'm really, really looking forward to see what you do with it. And it's been great working with you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Beatriz.
Thank you, and thank you all.
Now is the time of Olivia de Villaine.
Yes. Hi, everyone. So I'm going to share my screen. Sorry. There it is. So my name is Olivia de Villaine. I'm a French and Swiss photographer based in Geneva, Switzerland, where I live with my family. Between Memory and Milk began a year ago after losing my father while raising young children, inhabiting grief and new life simultaneously. The joy and the loss, care and absence, the beginning of life and the end of death existing at once. That is what this project is about. It brings together documentary images and double exposures, two visual languages moving through the same emotional landscape. We inhabit two realities at once. We accompany new life while facing death. We are in the body, in the everyday, in touch. And at the same time, there is something invisible running through everything. There is a memory of bathing my child and thinking this water is warm, this skin is soft, this moment is whole. And also they don't know what just happened, not yet. That gap between what you hold and what you cannot yet say is at the center of this work. There is no moment when grief steps aside to let life happen, they coexist. Sometimes brutally and sometimes quietly. Grief alters perception. It transforms the most ordinary moment into spaces charged with absence. It changes the way we look at our children, the way we see objects, the way we move through a day. Everything becomes a carrier of memory, an object, a gesture, a landscape. Nothing is neutral anymore. You notice things differently. The way a child holds an object that once belonged to someone gone. The way light falls on the floor and suddenly you are somewhere else. Someone else years ago. The ordinary becomes a door. You do not always want to open it, but it opens anyway. Some things cannot exist within a single image. It required layering, blur, the coexistence of multiple states within the same frame. Through this second visual language, another question emerged: what passes between us? The fragile continuity between generations. What is transmitted, what is kept, what is lost along the way, and how one continues to live with all of it. Grief comes in waves, moments when absence arrived with great force. And other, thankfully, that feel like hope. This last image represents a child's hair just beginning to grow, layered over a mountain summit, the beginning of life and the end of life. an attempt to give form to what cannot be explained, only felt. Thank you all for listening and for your time. And thank you to PhMuseum, Rosa, Laura, and Elisa. We have all learned so much from you. And of course, thank you to everyone in the class.
I think it's me commenting first this time. Yes, I think so. Thank you so much, Olivia. I mean, we've been looking at this work together for the last few months, but honestly, today, I think I saw something in it today that I didn't see before. I think what you showed me today is bringing your own two worlds that you've really been working on in the past few months. But I think because of the editing and the narration that you did today, you brought us the experience of grief as an adult and the images of children from the perspective of a mother. This is essentially what we're seeing in this work. But the way I perceived it conceptually is it's almost like you've taken me back to the curiosity and innocence of a child. So you've kind of backtracked, kind of like went back into the past. You've said, this is what I've experienced as an adult. And this is what happens as an adult, the reality of grief and what it does. And then you've kind of gone back to the position of what it's like to be a child and being open to the world again and being curious again and poking in water and, you know, going to hug your mother and all of these things. So I think in a way it shows the experience of grief visually from a very different point of view. Grief can be really dark, which it is, but I think you've shown us light from that space. And I think that's very interesting through also the multiple layers, looking at a lot of clouds, looking up at the sky. I think you've positioned us in a very different place. It's more of a hopeful position to experience grief. And I think you've done that really well in the edit and the narration and everything that you've done today. So I really hope also that you feel like you've kind of made big strides with this, because like everybody, you've also had your own kind of back and forth. Is it working? Am I doing the right thing? Is this meaning anything? And I really hope that you feel like you've arrived at something with where you are. And I don't know if it's over. I think you're probably just at the beginning. You've opened the door.
Yes, I don't think it's over. Yes.
You've opened the door.
It's a work in progress.
Absolutely. But thank you so much, Olivia. It's been a pleasure discovering this place with you and where you've taken us.
Well, thanks to you, Laura. Thanks very much for everything.
I really second Laura as usual, and there's a special type of hell, please pass me this, in experiencing grief while having a newborn or while having a very young child, because it crashes with your brain. It really messes with you, because on one hand, you are in the darkest place ever, and you're a son or a daughter, and at the same time, you're a mother or a father, and you have this new life that demands attention and demands play and demands and takes you out continuously from that loop, right? So it becomes extremely confusing, and it becomes a bit borderline at times to be able to navigate these two states, allowing the space for grief to be there because you have to, and at the same time keeping it at bay because you're also doing something else. And the only way to go through is to let them blend, which is very difficult to find word for it because it's not rational and it's not easy to comprehend. And I think that what you've been dealing with your work is exactly that really crazy, difficult space in the moment in which they blend, and you just navigate that and you just go through it and find a way to cope with it. And I think it speaks volumes about the possibility for photography to address these very complicated states of mind and of existence, right? And of the spectrum of human feeling that are there, and visual arts and representation generally as that, you know, that's one of the things why it exists. We need to represent things that we cannot grasp or we don't understand or we can't put words in there. So I think that you've been successful at that, and it's been difficult, of course, and complex, but you, like the others, you all found your way, which you know, happy mentor moment, happy teacher moment, because that's the best results we can hope for. Thank you for sharing your story.
Well, thanks
with
to
us
you,
and with
Elisa.
me. It's been a pleasure.
Likewise. Thank you so much for everything. Really. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Olivia. Now it's the turn of Gosia Boy.
Hello, everyone. Do you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so I will first share my screen. Just a moment, please. Okay. Again, hello, everyone. My name is Gosia, but my artistic practice name is Maria. It's a gesture towards my great-great-grandmother. I live and work between Warsaw and Barcelona, and I'm currently finishing my BA in photography at film school. For the past year, I've been working on a project connected to my diploma, and I was also very lucky to be supported by PhMuseum and wonderful mentors, Laura and Elisa, also Rosa and all my classmates. Thank you so much. Before this project, I was never working with documentary photography. I was mostly working with black and white conceptual photography, but this process here revealed something in me, and I started to think about color differently and became fascinated by it. Very quickly, it also became political for me. At the same time, I began researching my family history and roots through genealogical research and archives. I discovered migration histories connected to Ukraine, Austria, Germany, and Czech Republic. My family was always moving, and in many ways, so was I. Living between Poland and Spain, constantly changing places and having friends from all over the world with different migration experiences became the starting point for this project. The title, Should We Have Stayed at Home? Documents of Travel, is inspired by Elizabeth Bishop's poem, Questions of Travel. She was American poet living in 60s, and she was a life nomad. And Documents of Travel refers to March 1968 in Poland, when people of Jewish origin and citizens of Poland were forced to leave the country because of an anti-Semitic political campaign. For me, this history is a part of a system that still exists and repeats today. I can see it in current politics, where governments create and strengthen divisions between us and them, and between those seen as belonging and those seen as outsiders. So, in one hand, home is a central figure in this project as much as the portraits of individuals in move and their home spaces. So based on my personal narratives and experiences of my friends, I decided to confront diverse trajectories of mobility, ranging from forced migrations out of conflict zones to individual searches for new living spaces. What I was really interested in was the process of constructing home as an autonomous practice of identity. In my work, I didn't want to focus on traumatic images, stereotypes, or labels referring to migration, as I believe we are all migrants, but with different access to mobility and unequal opportunities. I also believe that the movement of people, objects, and meanings plays a crucial role in shaping contemporary multicultural societies. Migration is not an anomaly, it's a dialogue and the fundamental condition of modernity. And as Laura pointed out during one of our conversations, we always speak about numbers, but we never see the faces and the real people. That is what I wanted to focus on when portraying my friends. In the same time, while I was photographing my friends, I decided to introduce to my work a visual counterpoint based on the motif of a 17th century Dutch dollhouse inspired by Petronella Ortman, which today can be seen in the CRITICAE in Amsterdam. At the time, dollhouses were not toys. They were commissioned and furnished by adult women, and they could be even more expensive as prestigious townhouses. They also functioned as models of an ideally ordered domestic life, while also giving the owners control over a miniature version of it. So placing these two orders, macro and micro scale worlds side by side, the domestic space in which I photographed my friends and the constructed space of the dollhouse model I worked with allowed me to confront different systems regulating access to mobility. Finding yourself in a new reality is never easy, and building a home is even more difficult, as it depends on many factors such as a legal status, origin, and the color of one's passport. So my work in the dollhouse is a portrait of mechanisms shaped by borders, changing laws, and bureaucracy, which people on the move must constantly confront. In my practice, I used materials associated to administrative system and bureaucracy and control, but also to tension and movement. My main tool were colorful papers in a reference to colors of passports, sticky tapes, rubber bands, pins, and nitrile gloves. Also the archive of March '68 and the transcripts of conversations with my friends. Working within the dollhouse allowed me to process my thoughts, and like Petronella, I guess, I was trying to find some answers there and to organize my thoughts in this emotional process. Entering the world of the people I photographed and being welcomed into their intimate home spaces, I felt a lot of gratitude, but also responsibility. When photographing my friends, I wanted to focus on what was important to them, what represents them, while also showing their strength and beauty. This visual self-expression is a way of building identity on their own terms. I saw them expressing it through the way they dressed, performed, or through objects connected to their country, culture, religion, or beliefs. It was important to me to understand and capture how individuals build a sense of home and identity in a new cultural context. I was also interested in what happens after they settle into a new reality following their arrival over time, after 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, and sometimes as first generation people in a move. Watching the way they presented themselves with such pride in front of the camera, I immediately thought of Madison's Moore concept of fabulousness. I also believe that beauty and self-expression is the only true form of protest, and this is something I witnessed during my photographic visits at my friends' houses. I needed time to meet. I also was meeting other people that was not my friends. I was searching for them on the internet. I needed time to meet them in person and introduce my ideas. This meeting often lasted long hours of conversations about life, roots, culture, travel experiences, but also difficult topics connected to politics, war, the challenges of mobility and access to free movement across the world. My friends and other participants, who also became my close friends, come from different parts of the world like Sudan, Somalia, Norway, Mozambique, Ghana, Ukraine, Belarus, Russia, Israel, Iran, Afghanistan, Chile, Argentina, and many others. Through working with them, I had the chance to learn much more about their countries, the reasons they left, how this shaped their identity, and what they want to bring into a new society. I plan to exhibit this work beginning of July. I'm still in the process of editing and sequencing, and I'm very grateful again for all the support and everything I've learned through this journey at PhMuseum. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Maria, for this presentation. And it has been such a journey with you because you changed things, right? Not that long ago, you were working on something else, and then you reached the moment in which you said, no, you know what, I'm going to go to a different direction. And it was a very good choice. And you engage with this project that it's formally very articulated because you're blending portraiture with constructed imagery that creates this sort of, like the DNA shape, this helicoidal narrative in which you have the stories of the people that you've been working with and collaborating with, and their images are intertwined with these still lifes and constructions that make a very bold attempt into visualizing the infrastructures that surround us and in which we are stuck. There's this beautiful Louis Buñuel movie, God, now the title slips my head, but basically the story is that you have this group of people that are in a house and they're free to leave. There's nothing preventing them to leave, but they can't leave. They can't find a way out. And this is a very powerful way to visualize the idea of infrastructure, right? It's something that surrounds you, it's something that traps you in a way, but that you have no way to deal with and you can't resolve. And so, of course, you resort to the abstract, to the constructed image, to a way to visualize what can be seen at the end of the day. So you made a very bold attempt in there, and I think it functions. I see that you're still in the editing phase and sequencing because these are two different languages dealing with each other. So you need to be sharp and articulated in there. But I think it's a very successful attempt, and I'm really happy you made that choice. And I'm looking forward to see how this unfolds further.
Yeah, me too. I'm looking forward to the exhibition and to the final sequencing work. Thank you.
Yes. Hi, Maria. So just adding to what Elisa was saying, I think this idea of infrastructure is very interesting. And I think you didn't just choose to do a series of portraits of people who are now carving out a new path after leaving or being forced to leave their home, but you've added that extra element that is really a commentary on the state of things in the continent in general. And I think within this idea of being stuck in an infrastructure and trying to escape it, I feel like the way you've worked with the people in the pictures, they actually seem the freest of all within that infrastructure. They seem so liberated and so at one with who they are and so free with it. And the smaller constructions that you've created, I feel like this is where I feel trapped as a viewer. That because I feel like within that comment, I feel like I'm stuck in this structure too, because this is kind of where I live and this is the system that I'm in, and this is the system that I continue to vote within, and it continues to kind of conform to certain things that I don't necessarily believe in. So I think there's a nice conversation happening between the portrait images and the other construction. And something we've talked about before as well is that your portraits are really outside the norm of portraits that we normally see of people who have that kind of story. It really liberates the narrative of victimhood. It liberates them from the narrative of You know, just being here to take something from everybody else that's here, it really sets them within their own right, and they seem just like individuals who are thriving and living, and they own that narrative. They own the frame as well. You've put them in a place where they completely own the frame. So I think it's really great. And like Elisa said, I think I really commend you for choosing to change paths within the program, because that could be a very scary thing to do as well. And committing to something different, not knowing where it's going, but knowing you, I think you knew exactly where this was going to take you. So yeah, it's great, and I'm really looking forward to see where this goes. And yeah, it's been really, really great working with you.
Thank you
Thanks,
so much,
Maria.
Laura. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you very much, Gosha. Now, last but not least, is the time of Alcira Angelo.
Hey everyone, it's really beautiful to see you again the last time, but it's so very beautiful to see again your faces. So I'm gonna share my screen. Okay. Well, Tigre me persigue, the tiger pursues me. I think I'm gonna start with this quote. His gaze, tired of seeing the bars pass by, has nothing left. He believes that the world is made of thousands of bars and beyond that, nothing else. The Apante by Rilke. This tradition is by Shadow at the Chapultepec Zoo in the Hueros is a movie of Alonso Ruiz Palacios, and it's really important introducing to this project. So I want to start by telling you a story. 3 years ago, I was at the 16 de Julio fair in El Alto, Bolivia. It's a huge, chaotic, beautiful fair. I was filming another project and walking between the stalls. When I started noticing something, I couldn't stop looking at tiger pattern blankets, like in this image. The vendors used them as a roofs, improvised walls. They were everywhere. And at one point, walking with my friend Arturo, I confessed something I had never said out loud. I feel like these feelings are stalking me, pursuing me. And he looked me at to say, the tiger has struck you, just like Sombra in the film Hueros. That phrase was lighting to me. Sombra is a poet haunted by panic attacks that manifest as a spectral tiger. And I realized that I also had a tiger. My anxiety, my griefs, my body that was learning to recognize itself as a non-binary person. That was how El Tigre Me Persigue was born. The first person I photographed was Naira. This was in 2023. She was just beginning her transitional trans woman. And we made photos talking about her tiger, her body, her fears. And 3 years later, a few months ago, we met again. She was going through another grief. She had broken with her partner, but she also told me something beautiful. That was the first time she felt connected to her own body, that had been her last and deepest grief. And we made photos again, and it was very intimate, very poetic to see how the tiger had changed and how mine had too. So, yeah, there are many photographs. This is another person in my project. It's very beautiful. She's Hazel. It's a friend, and we talk about our tigers many years, since maybe we have 14 years. So yeah. The project took me on a journey. I went to Chile, to Colombia, to Peru, to many places around here to meet another tigers, other conversations, and I photographed people in their homes, in their intimate spaces, talking about what pursues them. Each conversation was a mirror, each portrait as a question: what is your tiger? How does it manifest? How do you live with it? And that journey taught me that the tiger is not only mine, it belongs to many people. And that naming it, giving it a face, making a photo of it, it's a way of disarming this power. So yeah, this is all of my I don't know, friends or people who meet and talking about this tiger. These persons are really, I don't know, shared to this intimate to me, and so this is beautiful to me to share with you. And along the way, there was also ideas I couldn't fully materialize. One of them was a personal X-ray of my anxiety, electrocardiograms, tomographies, and clinical records, a photographic anatomy of my target from inside. I didn't end up making those photos, but the concept is still there, latent, waiting for its moment, because the project doesn't end today, and maybe the most honest thing is to say what isn't there yet, as well as what already exists. These months have been hard, not just because of the project, but because life. I had a car accident, nothing serious, but a few stitches on my head, and while they were stitching me up, I threw about the tiger again, because just when you think you have it under control, it appears. Not to chase you, but to remind you it's still there. And it's also been hard because of my country. I believe it's going through a very complex crisis, a government that sells our land, our natural resources, roadblocks, inflation, uncertainty, and this summer it's rained heavily. The Peleau River flooded, the bridge collapsed, and traveling across the country became almost impossible. I felt trapped, locked in, like the tiger in Rilke's poem, walking back and forth behind bars. And in the middle of that, I tried to film a short film. It's a letter to myself to remember see this tiger again. And the short film is called Metamorphosis of the Sun. It's based on a dream I had while traveling to Santa Cruz in Bolivia. An orange kitten, a vet turning into a water, a trio, and a area of bags on vegetable one. And the dream where I discovered that tiger wasn't chasing me, that I was the tiger. But filming wasn't easy. I had a schedule in La Paz, in Santa Cruz, and in Cochabamba, but with the roads blocked here, the river flooded, the political crisis, I couldn't go to the Santa Cruz because I'm trapped here in La Paz. And I couldn't film what I imagined. So I had to improvise. I found a waterfall in north of La Paz, Leque, and a place that was a tempestuous, loud, strong, and high, the complete opposite of the main idea. And I let myself to be a guide by serendipity, by the tiger. This short film is not where I planned, but it's the most honest work I could make in the middle of a crisis. I'm going to show you a preview. It's just a letter to myself to remember this tiger inside of me. So I'm gonna share again my screen with the video.
Is there sound, Alcira?
Yeah. Did you hear?
No, wait. When stop sharing 1 moment.
Okay.
Share again. And when you
Didn't-
share, you see you have to tick 2 boxes for the video, for the sound.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I'm sorry for the inconvenience. So, okay. El sol ríe y me abraza.
Se siente tan cálido como el primer abrazo que nos dimos. De fondo suena la orquesta de pájaros cantando a todo pulmón canciones nuevas en la playlist de mi vida. Anoche soñé contigo. Fue lindo porque conversamos 1000 vidas que habíamos vivido. Me contaste cuando estabas en el Tíbet y eras un maestro budista. Me enseñaste instrumentos que habías creado y yo te conté que había salido de viaje por Saturno en mi barquito de papel y que aprendí a nadar en los pedazos de hielo y roca de los 10 anillos. Después llegó el atardecer y vimos el reflejo de nuestras almas en el otro y nos abrazamos por 1000 años más. Tengo muchas preguntas. ¿Por qué soñamos lo que soñamos? ¿A dónde vamos donde soñamos? ¿Son imágenes de universos paralelos? ¿Serán vidas ya vividas y solo son recuerdos? No sé las respuestas, pero me siento feliz de tener las preguntas y aventurarme en averiguarlas sin busca de una respuesta definitiva. Al contrario, quiero disfrutar este viaje. ¿Y será que nos podemos abrazar infinitamente? Well, that's what I managed to film. It's not perfect, but it's real. These months have taught me that tiger is not defeated, it's transversed, that looking in the eye, it's not one of time, an act of courage, but something we have to do again and again. And that writing, photography, filming is a way moving through it. And I also ran a role, one of the ones that the most excited about. At first I felt frustrated, but then I understood that the tiger doesn't always let itself be seen. Sometimes only leaves a stain, a shadow, an abscess, and that is also part of the project. So I want to say thank you so much, Laura, Elisa, Giuseppe, Rosa, the entire crew of CRITICAE team. Thank you for pushing me to think, to take makeup art, to find an architecture for what was just instinct. And thank you to my peers, to this group that me outside to the official sessions, video calls, sharing this process, poems, written roles. You show me that online education doesn't have to be called that vulnerability is on a bridge. Thank you to everyone to share the tiger with me, and thank you to the Mapuche editorial house that believe in this project enough to want to put it on a paper soon. So I'm really excited about that, and yeah, thank you so much, honestly.
Hi, Alcira. Yeah, so many things to say, but first of all, I'm really glad that you're okay after the car accident. That's the main thing. And I think overall, I think it's important to recognize that like our images, our work, and where it comes from doesn't exist in isolation from the world around us. Sometimes the world around us can really inform the work, but sometimes it can also be too much that we really feel we need to stop just to focus on the world around us. So I completely understand that, with everything that's happening, you just felt like, you needed a moment to breathe. And that's completely okay because you've come back still chasing the tiger. We've all been chasing the tiger with you for the last 8 months. And I feel like you have arrived with this really beautiful film that I think is the seed for something that can be more extended than that. I mean, you described it before and you've shown a very, very, very small fragment in our last meeting together. But I think what you've shown today really elevates it to something else. And I can see so much potential with this. Even, I don't know what you're deciding to do, but even if you decide to introduce layers of different audio or moments of pause, I don't know what you're going to do, but I think you continue chasing that tiger and it is going to take you places no one expects. But there's so much beauty and mystery, and I love your voice in that film. It almost sounds like you're haunted by this tiger. You're just so overwhelmed and weighed down by it that you're just haunted by it and obsessed by it as well. And I think that's a new layer that's really emerging in the film in a way that maybe we've talked about, but it wasn't so clear before. So yeah, please continue working with this film work. I'd love to see where it goes and where it takes you. And thank you so much for being here. It's been really, really great working with you.
Thank you so much, Laura.
Yeah, that absolutely that snippet of film looks incredible, and the voice, right? It feels like there's that movement, but at the same time you have a rhythm to it, like the one of spoken word, and it just gets you into it, and it's encompassing, and it's incredible. And I think that you've found such a powerful way to work with everyone you collaborated with. You're telling their stories and you're telling your story, and it all becomes very, very, very solid and very, very and very powerful. So go on, go get them. I'm really excited about what will come out from this. You're onto something solid, very solid. Go on.
Thank you so much, Elisa.
Great. So this is it.
Oof.
Very nice journey. I think Alcira said something really nice when she said that online education can be human and can be nice and something that you share more and more naturally along the months, and I think you did that, and it's never easy like to put together a lot of feedback in 8 months. It's a relatively a short amount of time. So it's great to see how all the project developed and all the potential that is still there. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed it, that you gather some methodology, then make new friends with the summer ahead and many festivals representing a good opportunity to meet up. And so yeah, congrats to everybody. Thanks Laura and Elisa for these years teaching together. We'll miss you, but as we said, there's going to be other opportunities. So I think yeah, you can celebrate this cycle, this first cycle together with us, the end of it. And thank you, Rosa, for all your energy. Everybody will thank you more and more.
Absolutely. It wouldn't be the same without Rosa. So Rosa really helped everybody just keep things calm and easy and flowing.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm Rosa. I solve problems. The best.
Also, if you have a problem at home, call me and I will come to solve it.
The RoboCop of PhMuseum. Absolutely.
No, I just wanted to say a couple of words again to thank everybody for the trust. Thanks, Laura. Couldn't have a better partner in crime for this. Thanks, PhMuseum and Giuseppe for having me. It's been a wonderful ride, and I really wish I could do more, because this makes me so happy. And I'm one MP mentor. I'm so proud of all of you. You've gone through many things, all of you, and you are at a good point, right? Don't lose that rhythm. Don't lose that pace. Just keep on pushing it, because you have things to say, and these things are important. So thanks, everybody.
Yes, and if I can also say a couple of last words, also to thank Elisa for working together and really keeping the conversation going and engaging. But I also want to say, as someone that's been in this position previously as a receiver on the other end, I know that at the end of these programs, sometimes you can feel a bit uncertain. Where am I going to go next? What am I going to do? Who am I going to talk to? Who am I going to share my work with? But the reality is, you now have a community with each of you. You're like a family now. So stay connected. Like, Giuseppe said, you have friends now in different parts of the world. So make sure you stay connected and share work with each other. Because actually, I think at the end of these programs, this is what really stays. You know, there's the work that you've created, there's the things that you've embraced, the ideas we've shared, but there's also each other. So definitely, you know, feel that you can lean into that. And I always say I'm an email away. You know, I may not respond right away, but I'm always here if you need something, and if I can be of help, I will. But it's been such a pleasure, as always. Definitely.
Thank you very much for all your kind word for this month together. So yeah, it's a very lovely way to end this session, I think. And yeah, what else to say? Thank you very much for to everyone who joined us today. And please, if you are interested in following the participants and their work, you can also contact them if you wanna make them involved in any opportunities. So they are there for you. And thank you very much again. So let's say goodbye. Bye, everyone.
Take care.
So many ends.
I